Hello.
So, we didn't have too much of a plan for this episode now that I'm thinking about it.
No, it was pretty much just bitching.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got something new to bitch about yesterday, and so I'm gonna start a little bit behind because I said I was gonna talk about my crash out that I had towards Epic the Musical recently.
I need to make you learn how ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't even remember how long ago. It was like mid-May, end of May, something like that. Like that somebody it's one of those posts where people do it for engagement where they're like, "Tell me your most unhinged opinion about blah blah blah."
Mm-hmm.
And we Shannon had stumbled on one that was like, "Tell me your most unhinged opinions about a musical." A lot of people in the comments were talking about Epic the Musical, and that's how we kind of got onto it. And of course, we were going through and finding everyone who was talking about Epic the Musical on that comment section. I ended up getting on them and talking about the fandom in particular, because if
Mm-hmm.
you know our history with the fandom, just to give a brief recap, is that we decided to start watching the musical because it had been recommended to us over and over and over again. And even by people who know Shannon's trauma history.
Mm-hmm.
And they never gave her a warning about Hold Them Down. So when we figured out that song was a part of Epic the Musical, Shannon did post like, "This is hella triggering, what the fuck," kind of thing. And I one thing that I think people lose in their critique of you critiquing Epic the Musical is that you were triggered in that moment. And so
Mm-hmm.
you did say things that people would think are extreme, like Jorge isn't the right person to be writing this. Jorge is bad at writing sexual assault. Like this song shouldn't exist. All of those things are opinions, that don't affect Jorge, don't affect the marketability of Epic the Musical, but the fandom lost it on Shannon. It started with one person doing the thing where they were like, "I want to talk about this post I saw about Epic the Musical, but I'm not going to name who it is." So, of course, the comments had hella engagement of, "Oh, who are you talking about?" And then it slowly got shared among people in the Epic fandom that it was Shannon, and
Well,
Shannon's post got
okay.
shared.
I will say for that post,
Yeah.
I saw that post because ironically, the person that who's like people with Epic the Musical when you watch it for the first time, there's always like different playlists with the different animations because different
Yeah.
artists do different ones. And a couple different people recommended this person's playlist to watch, and so his playlist was the one that we had like saved on our YouTubes that we were going through and watching all the different songs when we were watching and like reacting to it all. That person reposted that girl's video, and I was like, and I stared at it for a couple of seconds, and I was like, "Is this about me?" This video is about me. Somebody tagged me in it. What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
how is it possible that this is about me? Nobody cares about me. Like, nobody even knows me in anywhere, but especially in this particular fandom, why would anybody care that much what I think? If you post something like that and are like, people are going to want to find who you are because they want to
Yes.
go, because like when we talked about fandom with Jean before, fandom is a competition.
Mhm.
And so in an especially toxic fandom like this one, they need to prove that they are the best fan. And so every person needed to go find me and tell me like that because the reason why they got so mad when I eventually turned my comments off is because that's why they do that. Because if Jorge or somebody involved with the production of this musical sees that, they think that they would be proud of them seeing them attack somebody else like that, defending them. And so they don't like it when you delete all of their hard work. It's one of those things where you make videos for the people that see your videos, and then suddenly somebody obviously must have seen that. Well, that girl saw that video that girl posted. She used to have it pinned to her profile. She doesn't anymore, but it has like almost 1 million views.
Yeah.
And at the time that I saw it, it had like 300,000 and just kept going up. Like I eventually went private, my account went private because it was just too much. And it had like 700,000 views by the time that happened, like a couple days later. And so either way, like people just kept hers was a big video that people just kept like putting my name in there and just like starting arguments with me.
Hmm.
And I was like, who are any of you? And I will say that I went in like that post later and saw people that do follow me and do know me that were like trying to defend like me because they actually knew who I was.
Yeah.
That they're literally so angry that or like so out of it that they can't even see straight. And like it is still their responsibility to stop. Like
Yes.
to realize what you're doing and to stop. And there was a lot of like that's why I made all the videos that I did then. Like I made a bunch of videos after I made the initial one that made them all so upset. Before it like blew up, like all those videos were already on there by the time they all started looking at my account, where I explained why I felt that way and why I didn't like the writing in the song and what I felt like he needed to like work on when it came to writing wise and things like that. And so I made that all very clear so that if any of them saw it, they would understand where I was coming from. But it didn't matter because none of them actually watched it in full
Yes.
to even hear anything that I said.
Yeah, so what really got me during that time is like we both started kind of doing our own digging. And I know you found a lot of stuff out about Jorge's production and the fact that he did this during the pandemic, that during the height of the pandemic, he said things like, I don't really have friends, so I talk to you guys. The writing process was all 100% done on his TikTok. And so people have a type of ownership over this that they don't have over everything.
Oh, and sorry, and my favorite part of the project.
Yeah.
It has to be getting the community. I know it sounds like a cheesy answer, but they keep me going. Like there are so many times where I'm uh where I get to like hang out with the people on the Discord. Like I might be in one of the VCs, or I'll be responding to like funny comments online, or I love like sharing people's stories, and then sometimes people will be like, "Oh, he put me in his story," and I'll be like, "Haha, I did it again." So just getting to interact with people is very fun. Especially because writing can get really lonely. Sorry,
Yes.
that got really deep really quick.
No.
Like we kind of do the same thing with Percy Jackson, but we do try to manage our parasocial stuff with like these are literal children that are playing the parts.
Yeah,
Um,
and I will say when it comes to that stuff, like it's the stuff that was happening with Jorge is like toxic in the way that people will not let anyone give even like I know this may seem crazy because of everything we just said that happened because of what I posted, but the things that I said were generally like mild critiques. They were nothing like out of this world. They were completely like rational things to say. I even if you don't agree with what I said, I back them up with things to explain why I felt that way and explained it all. And so it wasn't like there are people in the Percy Jackson fandom who defend the idea to the death that Annabeth is an abusive partner and Percy is stuck in an abusive relationship.
yeah.
There are people on Twitter that are sure that Becky is the biggest bitch in the entire world.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to say that. Like, yeah, people in our fandom will make videos saying why we disagree with those people and explain like why we don't think that what they're saying is correct or whatever, or like we point out how they're like misinterpreting or misremembering things in the book or whatever when they talk about things like that. But we don't like personally attack them. We don't like go to their page and call them ugly and stupid and a bitch and say that they're lying about everything they've ever said about anything that's happened to them in their life and all this kind of crazy. It doesn't become like a personal vendetta most of the time. The times when stuff like that does happen with like the younger kids that are like usually they're like fans of just the show that are into it because they like the actors, which is fine. But when those kids do that, there are people that usually like call them out and tell them to calm the heck down. Like when the Andrew Alvarez thing first happened and those kids were defending him, there are a lot of other people that popped up to like rein those kids back in and explain why the things he was doing were like suspect so they would understand. And they did understand.
Hmm.
They may not like fully understand it in a way that we would, but they get it. They got enough to understand why people were angry about what happened. And so that's like a normal way for a fandom to behave.
Hmm.
But the thing with Jorge, I think, is that he started a Discord. And so he would do like these live, like, he would do like Discord calls, which scared the bejesus out of me because you can't like, unless you screen record them, they're not like recorded permanently. Anything like that on social media scares me.
Yeah.
He like could be doing absolutely nothing wrong. I'm not saying that he was, but it's just the idea of doing that with fans always leaves this situation where fans can feel like you're saying something that you're not. It like leaves the creator also open to like things because a fan could say that you said anything
Yeah.
and there's no way for you to ever just prove that you never said that because there's no, unless you record everything that you've ever said to any fan online or something, there's no way for you to like do that if there are no recordings of those things. Like it leaves you open to things like that popping up one day too. Much less like whatever on the side of the fans too. But because of that, I think he, even when the last like set of stuff was coming out, he would always do like a live stream on his Discord with like the official animations, whatever that means.
Yeah.
I guess the ones that Jorge likes best are like the ones with the artists that he paid to do, I guess, instead of ones that just make them themselves.
Yeah.
But he would always show those on his, like a live stream that he planned on his Discord. And there would be like, and that Discord had a lot of rules about how you were allowed to like talk about certain things. Like you weren't allowed to talk about Calypso.
That's
And
neat. Yeah.
in that Discord, that was literally a rule in that Discord that you couldn't talk about that song and why people didn't like it because became such a huge thing. Obviously, it would be when when there's people who have dealt with people like Calypso before that are like, hey, that's abusive, and she's also like abusive within the context of like the story that you're adapting. And then for people to show up and be like, no, she's not. Jorge says she isn't. And so obviously they just made a rule that you just couldn't talk about that. And and so in that general place, like obviously people there don't want to talk negatively about the thing that they're all in like watching together with the creator who's been writing it with them, like like bringing them along on this journey.
Hmm.
Like for me, when we talk about like Rick and Becky Riordan, like we have a lot of respect for them, but I also understand like I don't actually know them.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always use to compare like Epic to other fandoms, and I'll use Percy since it's our fandom, is that like people critique Rick's writing all the time.
Hmm.
Like every single day, I see at least one video of somebody critiquing something that he did. It is very, very accepted to not like something that he did, to question the writing decisions that he made. He himself has like questioned some of the writing decisions that he's made through the years by the things that he's changed on the show. And
Yeah.
just he's brought up other things that he's done that he knows that he made mistakes on, and things like that in the past. And so, like, it's very open. You can sit there and talk shit about him no matter how much you want, and nobody will, like, come at you as long as you aren't attacking him, like, personally as a person. Like, people got upset when people were attacking Becky as a person because that was just, like, a personal attack about her as a person. It didn't have anything to do with, like, you know, Percy Jackson, the brand, the TV show even. It was about her as an individual. And that's why people are still upset about it. But like nobody does that. Like you can say you hate anything in any of the books he's ever written, and nobody's going to get too upset with you as long as you can explain like why you're not lying.
Yeah.
Like even times when people make videos and you're like, that didn't happen. Like that literally didn't happen. Like when we were reading Battle of the Labyrinth, and I stitched that girl's video who spent 2 minutes saying that Percy could have left Calypso's island anytime he wanted, and he was just cheating on Annabeth. And I just stitched her reading straight out of the book about him saying how much he wanted to leave and that she wouldn't let him leave.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, even with that, I'm not attacking. I don't know who that girl is, people have left comments on that video being like, "Oh, she's a really big like Annabeth stan and doesn't listen to any critiques. Thanks for saying this." I had no idea who she was. I just knew that what she said wasn't accurate, and so I just literally read out of the book we were reading, since I had just read that scene, and I knew that she was like factually wrong about this, and
Yeah.
just and ended the video. I didn't even say any analysis. I literally just read out of the book and then ended the video, and like that's all you have to do. But in this fandom, there's none of that stuff because they feel very like personally, they feel like Jorge becoming successful is them becoming successful.
Hmm.
They feel very like connected to his journey as a creative person. And I understand why, like, he's somebody from Puerto Rico. He came to the US to go to college. He decided to stop trying to be a doctor and instead decided to do his passion of like wanting to do creative things.
Yeah.
This was the very first thing he ever wrote. And he was taking people on the journey of writing and going through the whole process creative wise, like somewhat publicly. I don't know how that would necessarily work, but I do know that the video that I saw of Hold Them Down was one that he posted of himself singing all the parts in like 2021 when the
Hmm.
song didn't come out until the end of 2024. And so he was clearly sharing things in some way. And I will say, just like as an obvious thing to say, when you share every single part of your creative process with their audience, they're way more likely to like it.
Hmm.
Like, period. If you make them feel like they're a part of everything from the start and have them listen to all the different versions of your songs, they're going to feel so personally invested in you and your songs, and they're going to feel like you writing this song and putting it out is them putting the song out.
Yeah.
They're going to love it in a way that isn't really fair because they haven't actually had a chance to actually like form a real opinion on it. Like
Hmm.
like when Rick Riordan puts out a new book, he doesn't like show us the like rough drafts and go through the process with us and have us give him feedback in any way when they're
Yeah.
writing like the episodes of the TV show. They like they interact with the fans, but they're not going to make decisions creative wise just because it's what the fans want
Hmm.
or anything like that. Like that doesn't happen. We wait and see and then enjoy it for what it is. And so if there's something in there that we don't like, we're judging it purely based on like the end of it.
Yeah.
Like
The
if you
end
don't like
results.
yeah, like if you don't like an episode of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, then you just don't like it and that's perfectly fine. You can say that's part of like taking the risk as a creative person is
Hmm.
giving your audience that like that just opportunity to like see your end product and then decide for themselves how they feel about it.
Yeah.
And but like
Well.
but when you share it the whole time, they're just going to like it
Hmm.
cuz you're sharing it with them. Like who would hear a song from a creator that they really like that they're sharing it while it's in the creative process and be like I fucking hate this song.
Yeah.
And they would just be like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Like
Seriously. So,
no one's
like,
going to do that.
my point with bringing this up is that I feel like this fandom is especially toxic because that is the way that this musical came about, because that is the way he interacts with his fans, and because they feel so much ownership of it. So, getting back to my point, we saw this post where people were asking about unhinged opinions on musicals, and we were going through the ones where people were talking about Epic the Musical. I started leaving comments, okay? Because this is when ice raids started happening. It's when like there was a bunch of stuff happening in the world and I was frustrated and I'm like, you know what? Jorge's a great scapegoat for this right now.
Mhm.
So I started talking about like, yeah, this fandom is trash and they're the reason why I hope it never gets big. Like I will admit I got very spicy. I got very spicy because I was just like so angry in that moment. And I don't regret it. I will say that. But I ended up getting into arguments with some of his fans because they were like, "Well, how is this Jorge's responsibility?" And it goes back to what we were just talking about, the way that he shared his creative process, the way he involved all of them, the way he made all of them feel like it's their project. And
Mhm.
so, because he created that environment, because he has this Discord where he connects with his fans, it is his responsibility how his fans behave. It is. I will stand by that. You know, if it's somebody like like I've talked crap about Nicki Minaj and how she should rein her fandom in. That because of the degree of what they were doing. But on a day-to-day basis, like I don't expect somebody who is out there for the world to necessarily know everything their fandom is doing. When you connect with them though, on a one-to-one level very often, when you are a TikTok creator and when your sound's getting used a lot and you can scroll through your sound and see what videos are created under it, which some of the ones bullying Shannon were audios from Epic the Musical used under it.
Hmm.
Like there is no way he never saw the degree to which like they were bullying people because it couldn't have been just you even.
Mm-mm.
And so what happened at the time when Shannon was getting bullied is we both tried reaching out to Jorge and being like, hey, rein your fandom in. Like, this is the type of stuff they're doing. We think you should know. Of course, we got left like, I know my Instagram stuff probably wasn't going to get seen because when you're a big creator and you try to DM someone on Instagram, it goes into a filter.
Hmm.
And so I kind of knew that was going to happen. But I also started leaving comments on all of his videos. I started tagging him in some of the videos where people were bullying you, and nothing ever came of that. And then you reached out to him over email, over his
Hmm.
business email, with screenshots and links, and
Hmm.
nothing ever came of that either. And
Hmm.
so, to some degree, we have an inkling that he had to have known, even if it wasn't bullying you in particular, that they were bullying people.
Yeah, there's no way. Like the in our last episode, I brought up a TikTok creator that we both like
Hmm.
who talks about Greek mythology stuff. She had essentially the same sort of thing, but she was being much nicer to the fandom when she gave her critiques, and they reacted to her the exact same way. She
Yes.
made a video saying, I haven't listened to all of Epic the Musical, which is literally what I said in my first video about Calypso.
Hmm.
But she said, like, I have heard clips from the songs, and I feel like the writing isn't like as good as it could be. That if he took more time to work on some of these songs, the writing would be better, and the musical would be like it would reach its full potential. Because she was saying things that make sense, like the song when they're in the underworld, and his mom is like saying something, like saying a word. She's saying like a word that basically means that she is like dead, and she's literally singing basically like I'm dead. She's not saying that. I can't remember the exact lyric now, but it's like a super on the nose sort of thing that she is saying. When usually when you write lyrics for things, you like describe that feeling in like different words. Like when you're reading a Percy Jackson novel, for instance, like let's take like Sea of Monsters for example, because this is a quote that people quote a lot when they talk about Percy struggling and stuff. When their ship blows up and he thinks that Tyson is dead, he thinks that he wishes that he could drown because he wants to jump into the ocean and drown because he's so sad that Tyson died. It would be like instead if Rick wrote, I'm really sad right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's like that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, that's how I felt when I listened even to the songs that I generally enjoyed besides Ruthlessness. Every other song I felt like there was just something missing, that if he worked on it a little bit more, that it could like become like really good.
Hmm.
But because like the feedback was always so overly positive, I'm like he's not going to do that at this point
Yeah.
unless somebody like much more powerful than him like literally makes him or something. But I was like he's not going to do that at this point. But that's how I felt about it too. Like I feel like it could be really really good, but there's just like something missing, and she was being very nice to the fandom and they still ripped her apart for like days and weeks where she refused to talk about it at all for like 6 months. And
Yeah.
then like came back like many months later, and still whenever she makes a video about it, there's still people giving her crap about it, so she just like refuses to talk about it because it's like this fandom I can't talk about. She The way she put it was like I can't talk about it the way that I want to. And it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like you want to be able to like critique it and analyze it like you would anything else, and you just can't do that. Jorge has to know about the way that his fandom attacks people because I mean, I feel like you can't ever say that he doesn't know, considering that he did say something. in recent times about something that was happening because he was
Yeah.
basically like forced to. It was still like such a bitch ass like move that he did, where he didn't
Yes.
really say
I
anything. But
called that out in the thread too. So,
yeah,
wait, let me give context behind that. So on
yeah,
Easter, he put out a story where it was just like three-fourths of the story was him praising the fandom, and then the last little paragraph was like, "And don't bully people, please." And I ended up responding to that story on Instagram once again, knowing he probably wasn't going to see it, and I'm like, "You're a fucking coward," because
hmm
like. How is this the first time you're calling them out on this when it's somebody who's on your payroll? Like,
hmm
that's it. You don't care if they do this to small creators. Fuck you. Like, I literally said fuck you in his DMs. And
yeah.
like, it's just I did talk to people about that too, because a few of them were like, "Oh, he does care what his fans are doing." I'm like, "Okay, no, he doesn't," because the one time he called them out, it was three-fourths lip service of like, "You guys are so great, you're so awesome, you're my everything," and then he said, "Don't do that."
It
And
was
yeah.
that the for the way that you know that he doesn't actually care in that way about what his fans do to other people is it was a story. So
It was the
unless you
Instagram story, 24 hours.
he posted a story on like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, I think, but those stories are only up for 24 hours. And even on TikTok, particularly where the majority of his audience would be, since that's the majority of the place where he started posting and stuff,
Hmm.
sometimes TikTok doesn't show you stories of people that you're even following. And so unless you like went to his account or they happen to show it to you, there's a good chance that a lot of people didn't even see it. Like if you're
Hmm.
being serious about it, just post it to your account so
Yeah.
that people will see it no matter how long like time has gone by and things like that. You know, don't like just post it in a place where it's like that's like always the bitch move when anyone who's a public figure posts something like that in a story. That's like people have like when influencers post apologies as stories, people rake them over the coals for doing that because it means that they're too scared to put it up on their actual profile.
Hmm.
And then the story itself, like you said, was very vague. Like I saw one of the funny things about the epic musical people attacking me so much is that TikTok always shows me their videos. Like
Yeah.
I'll go like sometimes a couple weeks without seeing any and then they'll start showing them to me again because so many of them engage with my videos. It thinks that I want to see that stuff like no matter how many times I tell it no. And so I saw a video of somebody mentioning that Jorge said something about something, some sort of something that happened and I was like, what? Like, what could possibly have happened that made him actually say something? And ironically, I saw the post that kind of made that whole thing happen when it started happening, and saw how all of the top comments were people just saying really mean things about some of the artists. And I was like, wow, these aren't hot takes about anything. This is just being really mean. That's mean, but that I don't expect anything better from that fandom, so I didn't think that much further about it. I went to like their um I had to go to like their Reddit page, their epic musical Reddit and like scroll back a couple pages to find the context of what he was talking about. And to because he was so vague in that post that I generally had no idea what there's like a million different things that they could be harassing people about. Um and so I finally found it and then once I could search for like the person's name, I found like some of the stuff that happened and like the one of the artists made a post on their account saying that like I don't think it's fair that Jorge asked us to do certain things. Like he was the one, he's like I didn't feel comfortable with the essay and hold them down, but he wanted us to like animate the video that way, so I had to do it. And he wanted us to like turn one of the characters' eyes a different color or something, was one of those things that fans brought up that they didn't like.
Yeah.
And it was his decision, and so I had to do it. But like people don't critique him, they critique me because I'm the artist who did it, and so they think that I did it because he doesn't bother to say anything that it wasn't that it wasn't that it wasn't me, it was him. I'm doing what he's literally paying me for a job.
Yeah.
And people like people are getting mad at me because he's asking me to do certain things that I don't even want to do, but I have to do them. And like he said it in a very like clear and like nice way that like it's frustrating being in the fandom, getting heat for things that he's asking them to do, and doesn't really say anything, and it makes the fandom a hard place to be for like an artist, and it makes you like not want to make art for them anymore, because the artist that was being harassed in that and stuff said like, I'm not going to make art for Epic anymore because this just like makes me never want to think about it again.
Hmm.
And there were people in the comments of that video, most of the top comments on that video were people being like, yeah, you're right, except for that stuff you said about Jorge.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is literally one of his employees. This is one of his employees that are telling you that because he asked them to do their job, and then notice when people were like saying bad things about them online, because he's an online creator. That's like the whole thing with this whole situation with Epic the Musical always is like, you are an online creator.
Hmm.
You do this online. Epic only exists in the online space. Nobody who's not super online has any idea what this is. It's not anywhere else except for online. And so if the entire like way that you built up your career is by making TikTok videos and TikTok edits and being on Discord and on YouTube and stuff and going live with your fans once a week on your Discord, you cannot tell me that you don't know what your fandom is doing. Like,
Yeah.
this is literally how you know how fandoms are. If you're online, you know how fandoms are. You have to be online. The amount of success that you have when you're online means that you know how social media works.
Hmm.
And so you know how this stuff works. You know what fans can be like. And so if you decide not to say anything when you can see fans going over the top to defend you and that kind of thing, which if you were doing this kind of stuff, it's hard for me to believe that you wouldn't think that fans would feel personally invested in you in this way, where they would feel like the need to protect you and things like that. If you don't stop them, then there's no way that I will ever believe you that you don't know that this is going on. 'Cause
Yeah.
especially when you're someone who is known as an only online creator, you know how the internet is. And
Yeah.
so if you leave if if one of your employees is saying like, yeah, I've been getting heat for the things that he made me do as part of my job as being his artist, and he never mentioned in a video that those were things that he wanted me to do and left me to do it, that's a shitty boss. Like,
Yes.
taking who he is out of it, that's a shitty boss. When your boss makes you take the heat for things that they're actually doing, that's
Hmm.
not a good work life environment. It's not.
Exactly.
It's not.
So,
And
yeah, we'll call out this fandom forever because of like how they treated us. But my point, just like in general, is the reason we hold Jorge more accountable is because of these things.
mhm,
Um, it's why we think he should be more responsible over his fandom, and the fact that he isn't, and he's about to create a Troy musical now, it it feels very irresponsible. And like, I don't want to get too much into his plot because I don't like, I know we talk about it sometimes in a way that makes it seem like we don't like adaptations. That's not it, you know? Like,
mhm,
one part of the adaptation that he made that I was thinking about the other day, I had a whole conversation with Shannon about this, is the underworld part where Tiresias comes in. And he completely changed what Tiresias tells him, because Tiresias is like, you got to keep your men away from the sun cattle. Like, he kind of lets him know what's going to happen. And a lot of times in Greek mythology, that is the way that prophecies work. They tell you exactly what's going to happen, and then it happens. And narratively, in the way that we understand stories modernly, that doesn't work the same. Like,
mhm,
it works in Greek mythology because they have the concept of the fates, where something is already written and nobody can change it except Zeus. Like, that's
mhm,
that's how Greek mythology works. So I understand changing things. I understand making it more interesting as a narrative. Um, but I can still disagree with some of the changes and defend his right to change them. You know what I mean?
yeah. It's not the thing with that fandom that where you feel like you're losing your mind every time you talk to them is that like you're just trying to talk about it in the way that you talk about literally everything else on the planet.
Yep.
Like everything else you can sit there and be like, yeah, this is obviously an adaptation. He changed some things. It's
Hmm.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't change anything, but I'm saying that because of the way he changed things and the way that his story was then crafted from that point forward, I didn't like how he changed things. I didn't like how his changes resulted in the overall story of the narrative. I
Hmm.
didn't like how it changed the character of Odysseus because I liked his character the way that it was originally, and I didn't want it to change that much. I didn't want to see Odysseus stabbing Poseidon in the ocean 60 whatever times. That is not something that I expected, and not something that I wanted to see. That's like absolutely absurd. Like, it was funny watching Percy Jackson accounts that do like skits. They did skits of Percy asking Poseidon, like, why the fuck did that happen? Or like, how did that happen? Because they were like making like jokes about it, you know? But it still like is like a height of like just absurdity that the god of the ocean could possibly ever be beaten by a normal mortal while they're in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, that's just wild. Like, you can do that. Like, if you want to have like a super like acro man moment and have that happen, then, you know, no one's obviously going to stop you to do it. But other people that aren't like super into the idea of watching Odysseus just beat people up is going to be like, this is really weird. Because this is not usually something that happens in stories like this, and just not what I expected to happen in this exact musical exactly. and
Yes.
and so like he's allowed to change it, but also that also means that when you make art and you decide to change things, people can like pop up and be like, I'm not really sure that I like the changes, which is fine. Like, to compare to like the Percy Jackson stuff again, like, people can be ridiculous about the stuff that they changed in the show, which we're gonna bitch about in later. But like, they're still allowed to say that. Like, no one's like stopping them from ever being able to just say the stuff that they want to say about the changes that the show made. Like, if you are mad that this TV show is not a walking book, and that's fine. Like, if you're mad that Walker's hair is like blonde and not dark brown, then, you know, go off, bro. Go on
Yeah.
go on Reddit, say whatever you want, like, say and do whatever you want. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. You can do that. People are going to be maybe like annoyed by that, and like, you know, talk about why you sound like a weirdo, and why those things don't feel like exactly like based in reality sometimes, with like how myopic those things get when you get down to it from like a, but we say that kind of stuff when we're talking about art.
Hmm.
And so when people are talking about that, we're like, from an analysis section where you're talking about something from a book being adapted into a TV show. This is why I think that these critiques aren't exactly fair. You're still allowed to say them. No one is telling you that you're not allowed to do it. But with that fandom particularly, you're not allowed to do it. Like, he can change whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. He can make Odysseus beat up Poseidon out of nowhere. They can have the whole thing with Calypso, and all he does is tell him, "Oh, I love you too, but I don't have those special feelings for you," and have him leave her island without her ever doing anything to him. He can have him be like to Cersei, "Oh, you're a pretty girl, but I just love my wife," and for her to be like, "Okay, I give up."
Yeah.
And they can have him literally pick out the 6 men he doesn't like most when he goes against Scylla, and have Charybdis not even be there for that part, and have Charybdis come up later. And like, he can dismember the fucking sirens,
Yes.
and like, out of nowhere, like, dismember them because
That was so abrupt.
he's fed up by the underworld. They can do all of these things. They can change all of these things. But if you just pop up and be like, I'm not sure that I like the overall narrative of this musical and how it's changing the adaptation of Odysseus and Penelope's relationship, or anything at all, you would just be like slaughtered alive. And so it's like, how do you interact with something like that? Like, he can change whatever he wants, but you can't ever comment on anything that he's actually changed.
Yeah.
That doesn't exactly, the overall thing with this fandom that we've always thought is that, like, and it feels like very ironic, but any of his like kind of like career things that he wants to do past this, like, bringing anything he makes like into like the real world, I guess, is the best way to put it. Like, not just on the internet, like adapt it into something that would be like a physical product in some way, his
Yeah.
fandom is going to be the thing that stops it the most.
Hmm.
Like, I hope you guys realize that you're going to stop him, because how are you going to gain that many new fans if you critique it at all in any way, or him at all in any way? You get like dogpiled. That's going to like, that stops people from wanting to even get involved. And like, I
Exactly.
don't know if you guys know this, but people on Broadway don't care about your feelings. And so if his show ended up in any platform, on like anything in like a play or musical form, they would not only, they would absolutely recast the entire show, but also the people that go see it, that review it, would not care what you think. They won't
Exactly.
they won't be popping up being like, you have to what, like some of the original comments on those videos were like, well, on his Discord live stream he gave trigger warnings. I'm on TikTok right now. I watched this video on YouTube. Do I need to know where his super special Discord is to not
Yeah.
get myself so fucking triggered? Like, part of the reason why I made that video in the first place is because I got so triggered listening to that song, and it was in the middle of my workday, and I was like, I have to actually do my job right now. I'm like off somewhere else in my mind right now, like remembering bad times. I need to actually be in the present mind right now, because I am like barely being able to talk to the people that I have to talk to every day for my job. And so, one little tip if you have complex PTSD is, if you do something where you have to like focus in any way to do it, that helps bring you back into your body. And so I'm like, I'm going to make a video about this, because to make a video, I have to like press the button to hit record, and I have to like press it when it's over, and I have to concentrate enough to like add hashtags and things like that to post it. I thought about posting it privately for only like my mutuals to see, but I was like I'm always like holding myself back from like being more vulnerable about stuff. So I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm trying not to do that anymore. So I'm just going to post it publicly. I thought that anyone would be able to tell how upset I was in the video, but this fandom doesn't care about stuff like that. And
No.
so, but that's like why I made the video in the first place, was because I was so triggered by hearing that song, and I was just trying to like calm myself down. And I was likely going to go back after work was over that day and just like delete that video, but then ironically, the first couple days it was up, there were some like nice like comments and just like discussions happening in the comments. There were people in there being like, I heard this song a couple years ago, and I'm hoping that he changed it when it comes out in a couple days.
Hmm.
And I don't want it to be like this either, or like, I understand why you're upset kind of comments. And
Yeah.
then when that one girl made that video and people started all finding my account, then it became like this wild thing. So that's why I didn't delete it. Because at first I was like, this is just like a nice discussion about sexual assault, or like rape, like representation, for lack of a better word, and like media. And so I don't want to delete it, because it seems like somewhat of a good discussion is happening in the comments of the video, so I don't want to get rid of it. And then like that girl made that video, and all of that got like erased immediately, because within like
Yeah.
2 hours I turned off comments, and all of those were gone forever. And so it's like, that's like the normal response I would get, like a couple comments that are being mean or whatever, sure, I just delete them. But most of them are usually more that end. And
Yeah.
so that's how that was. I never expected it to be like that. And I don't know, like him making the Iliad is just like, oh Jesus Christ. But I don't know. I just feel like watching his fandom is like watching a car crash.
Yes.
And I like can't look away, because I'm generally like worried about who's going to get hurt. Like, I know what it's like when they harass you. It's really intense and really awful. They pull zero punch, like they will go for anything. When they are going after you, they will go after you about anything and everything. They suddenly were also insulting you and acting like you got like a minor in Greek mythology. Some of them were questioning whether you even got a degree at all, and I was like, you can literally like Google this. What like, she literally has on her, and I was like, her top videos on her profile are all 7-minute long videos of her going through the myths in detail. It
Yeah.
said like on the top of your profile at the time the name of your degree. And I'm like, are you really did you even look at her profile before leaving this on my like, no, obviously not, or else you wouldn't have said this. But it was just anything that we did. They made fun of how we liked Percy Jackson. They made fun that we had a podcast. They made fun of like the knowledge we had about Greek mythology. They acted like you didn't know anything. They acted like I didn't know anything. They
When some of
questioned
them,
whether
wait, I need to say this because some of them were spelling Odysseus Oddyss. Like, you can't tell me I don't know about Greek mythology when you can't even spell Odysseus's name right.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Like literally every like anything they found about that we said, they somehow found something wrong with it. And was
yes,
making videos literally like laughing about, isn't it so funny that these people think that because of this and this that it means this, and I'm like, that's not what we said at all. And
no,
like, how did you even get there? And so that's just like an intense thing to go through. And if they do that with us, then they do that with everybody. And it just makes me worried about how they're going to treat if whoever the next person is that accidentally does something like that without realizing what they've actually stepped into. I
yeah,
just I just worry about that person. Like I generally worry about them because they don't have like any chill whatsoever. It's like 7 months basically since that happened. And if I started making videos about Medusa again and I had comments on, those people would be there once again telling me that she's not actually a rape victim and go find somebody else. If I let them say that, they would still be saying that because they said that to me a month ago when I finally decided that I never wanted to see those comments ever again. And anytime I post about Medusa, I don't leave comments on because I don't want to deal with it. I either post it where only my mutuals can see it, or if I post it publicly, no one can say anything because
yeah,
I physically can't handle seeing those comments anymore. And it's just like that should not happen because I just said that I didn't like a song. Like,
yeah.
that's all I said.
Well, and so I want to talk about like what is the like phrase that people use in psychology, like the Schrodinger's cat of it all,
Mhm.
of like this is book accurate and this is an adaptation, because
Mhm.
they choose both arguments depending on what they're saying.
Mhm.
When Jorge himself has said it's an adaptation, I don't really know the story that well. And I mean, like, you can't defend it like he is pulling from source material 100% when he's not even saying that.
Mhm.
But there's a very clear misunderstanding of the source material, in my opinion, making Odysseus a ruthless person. Like, even though we both liked the ruthlessness song, um, making him a ruthless person is not necessarily who he is. And I know I just made a video today talking about how Odysseus, like, he's scary and how crafty he is, but like, it's
He's
yeah,
so the way the ruthlessness song we liked was Poseidon being like, I'm a ruthless little bitch and you hurt my son and so now I'm gonna rip your head off your body.
well, and it was
And
like
like,
you should have killed him all the way if you
yeah,
weren't
you
gonna
should
do
have killed
this.
him instead of keeping him alive and now I'm gonna just torture you some more because you like hurt my son but also didn't put him out of his misery basically.
Yeah.
Um but like the way that Odysseus is like ruthless is like intelligently. Like
Yes,
he's
it's
he's not
trickery.
somebody who's like kicking ass and taking names and acting like I don't even know the person that you would compare that to now when it comes to like action movies.
Hmm.
I want to say Rambo, but that makes me feel really old. I've never even seen a Rambo movie, but that's like the reference people would make in the 90s all the time with that sort of
Yes.
Magna Con like super aggro like guy with gigantic muscles just beating people up. Like I love the Fast and the Furious movies. I'm not against those sort of things. But just historically, I guess I will say Odysseus is not somebody that usually is depicted that way.
Hmm.
And so when I went into watching Epic, I think a lot of people likely who knew the story of the Odyssey, if you knew it before you watched this,
Yeah.
you were probably expecting like some sort of sexual assault representation between Circe and Calypso and
Hmm.
Odysseus, which is always a breath of fresh air when that kind of thing happens to a man and it's taken like legitimately. And so that was really disappointing for a lot of people overall. And then you were expecting Odysseus to be that person that doesn't want to do these like super violent things necessarily. All of his like scheming is usually to find ways to get out of having to do stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so, but in this version of it, he just goes for the violent things first. And like if you like that because it's different and it's just him going like hard on being like a bad person instead of him going back and forth between being a good and bad person, then that's perfectly fine. But also, that's not usually how he's depicted.
Yeah.
And so if you change his characterization like that when you're adapting the Odyssey, and this is the only like kind of thing you've made so far in Greek mythology and like creative wise, really at all, then you're probably going to have some people that question you about it,
Yeah.
and just like don't like it or just like question your like writing decisions. I mean, that's fine. People question Rick Riordan's like writing decisions with how he depicts mythology.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of classics people that think that it's his fault that people have misguided ideas about Calypso.
Hmm.
Because they haven't read his books, and so they don't know why he wrote her the way that he did, and
Hmm.
things like that. Like it makes sense within the context of the story why he depicted her that way. But if
Yes.
you only get comments of people not realizing that that wasn't like in the myth because they were kids when they read it, and you resent that, then you're going to be mad at him for how he wrote it. And there's some people that don't like the way that he wrote, like because he changed the fact that like Athena has children and things like
Hmm.
that in the books, or how he depicts like certain gods in the books and things like that. Some people like different versions of the myths than the ones that he chose. And
Yeah.
they're completely within their right to say that they don't like that because everyone has like a favorite version of those different characters. And if he didn't pick the one that you like, you're allowed to say that. But he also has a lot of other work to show, to kind of like show that he does know what he's talking about in general when it comes to Greek mythology. But this is the only thing that Jorge's ever written. And so the first
Yeah.
thing you write is changing a lot of the fundamental things about the Odyssey. And if you don't feel personally connected to him, where you like are okay with him making all those changes, or if you don't enjoy the changes just for themselves, I think that it's logical to want us to be able to just say that.
Yeah.
To just say like I was surprised by this and I wasn't expecting it to be in like depicted in this way.
Well,
We
and
should be
I
able to
don't
say that.
I don't necessarily have a problem with people getting introduced to Greek mythology by adaptations. You know,
Mm,
as a classicist, like I am one of the people that's of the belief that because our departments get cut in schools all the time, because Latin and Greek classes get cut, because classics classes get cut, that butts and seats are the priority. And if reading Circe, if reading Percy Jackson, if watching Epic the Musical is what does it for you, that's awesome, you know?
mhm,
But don't sit here and tell me that shit happened in the Odyssey that didn't happen in the Odyssey because you are vehemently defending this one person who has said himself like I'm not true to source material.
mhm,
Like it was just so wild to me. And so like to kind of move us a little bit forward, he recently announced he's doing a Troy musical. And as someone who has worked with this piece of literature in multiple classes, looking at it from multiple lenses, it's a little hard for me to imagine that something good is going to come of it, considering what happened with Epic and what happened with the fandom in Epic, because the whole Trojan War thing, I believe, at least the way it's written in Homer, that you're not supposed to clearly be on one side or the other. As
mhm.
much as Homer is writing from a Greek perspective, and you know the Trojans are the eventual like Romans. I don't think that any of the characters are wholly good or wholly bad. And like I'll give my one exception, my literary boyfriend Hector. You know, like he is supposed to be the face of piety as it's known in the Greek world. And you know, even Priam to some extent, like part of the reason he never sent Helen back was because if we're going with the theory that Helen is in Troy because of the judgment of Paris, because you know, like he judged this contest of the goddesses, and Aphrodite was like, "Hey, you get Helen as a prize." He's not gonna send somebody back who the gods gave his son. Like,
Mhm.
you know, it's him showing reverence to the gods. And I'm scared he's going to lose that in his depiction. I'm scared of what he's going to do with War Brides because
Yeah.
of how Hold 'Em Down was done. We do kind of have some idea that his depiction of Circe in his musical is somewhat based off of Madeline Miller's Circe. And so like there's portions of Song of Achilles going with another Madeline Miller that has to do with the Iliad that like we also were kind of like this is questionable, right?
Yeah, Song of Achilles is so much of like a romance that you
Yes.
like don't realize that there's a war going on because they just the war is in the background. It doesn't really take importance. Like things that should come up when you're in the middle of a battle and in a war like that
Hmm.
never happen in a way that's like confusing. It feels like it just things should be happening that are not, and it just distracts you if you're not like super invested, I guess, in the romance. And
Yes.
we weren't. And so um, that is one thing that I've noticed is that his depiction of he says that he's never read Percy Jackson, but nothing will convince me that his depiction of Calypso was not based on what he saw Percy Jackson fans say about Calypso.
Yes.
Because like the words of the beginning of his song is even almost exactly the words of the first chapter of like the beginning of the chapter where when Percy first gets to the island,
Hmm.
like waking him up asking like who you were talking in your sleep, and he says sorry, and then it says like who is this person, and he says like Penelope instead of Annabeth, and he says like my wife instead of oh Annabeth's my friend, but they're almost like the exact words, and I'm like there is no way you're ever going to convince me that in the least he didn't get that information from like somebody who watched or read Percy Jackson,
Yeah.
because it's way too close to like how some people would describe Calypso in the way that if you're not taking her that seriously or whatever. Um, and so, and in the same way that, like what you said is true, that likely Circe was based on how Madeline Miller wrote her, and that's like really just not exactly the best to think about how he would depict like Patroclus and Achilles or Achilles in general. Like
Hmm.
Achilles in Song of Achilles, I wanted to like punch him in the throat for most of the book. But especially at the end, like part of the, I was like, I am offended by how he's being written right now.
Hmm.
I hated him. I like wanted him to die. I was literally, if you watch the episodes we did, it is like me yelling at him that he's not, that he doesn't have the guts to kill himself, and me being like, go do it, go, like go, just go do
Yes.
it. Why are you making somebody else do it for you? Just do it yourself. Because I was so done with him that I didn't even want him around anymore, because of how she wrote him in the way that she wrote that romance story. I don't know. She just made weird
It's yeah.
choices. And so if he like copies what she did, then it's just going to be even weirder. And especially like really scares me the idea of him understanding fundamentally what the what like who Bryceus is
Hmm.
and like what she's doing. Like she's being sex trafficked. All of the girls that are there are being sex trafficked. Um, I
Yeah, that's
like
what a war
Madeline Miller
bride
didn't
is.
realize that either. In the book, she's talking about like, oh, isn't it great that they're all getting married and having kids? And I'm like, these women are being raped and having children with their rapists that they're forced to have because they're not allowed to leave. They're
Yes,
literally being
like
held prisoner. Like, why are you making this sound like it's a
you're
good
writing it
thing?
Stockholm syndrome type
Yeah,
thing. And
like this is really bad.
yeah, so we're concerned because we don't trust him with this work in a way because of how things went with Epic. And I don't
The
know. I'm
thing,
scared for my
honestly,
literary boyfriend Hector the most, to be
yeah.
honest.
And the thing, honestly, I just think about is like Greek mythology is Greek mythology is supposed to be something fun
Yeah.
that is also like thought provoking. There's a lot of stories of abuse in it. There's a
Hmm.
lot of stories about power dynamics. There's a lot of really good, interesting stories that are very relevant to, right now. And
Yes.
so a lot of people that have been through a lot of shit usually like Greek mythology because a lot of people are in it that have been through a lot of bad shit and they somehow figure out a way to make it through it. Like my undying love for Medusa. My mom came back from Italy and bought me a bag from Italy with Medusa's face on it. She was literally like
Yeah.
walking around that country trying to find anything with Medusa on it, and most of it was sold out because everybody likes her.
Yeah.
And so like take that. Like the one the museum with the Caravaggio painting that she got me on the bag, she said like there was like hundreds of people all around just her painting taking pictures of it, where she had to like sit there for a while before she could take pictures, and then
Oh,
took like 7 of them to make sure she got one that came out right.
yeah.
Because she just wanted to make sure she got one for me. But either way, like that whole thing is like there's a lot of stories like that in Greek mythology. So usually people that have like struggled in some way in life tend to like Greek mythology. And I'm mostly just worried about this like fandom having like a section of this community that feels like it would be welcoming and will have like, you know, songs and things that are very digestible online. But also if people get like basically say anything that people don't like, it makes it very hard to be included. And so I just don't like, that's what I'm more worried about is like people wanting to be involved in it and then getting like backlash. I want people to be able to enjoy this mythology stuff and be able to say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like there are people have said whatever they want to us, and they're allowed to do that. And I'll pretty much, as long as you don't like start attacking us like personally, I will sit there and have a discussion with you about anything. I think that's fun. That's like the fun of this stuff. But I just, you can't do that with people like that. And I just more worry that like, I don't want people to be like driven away from something that can give people a lot of things to hang on to. And it feels just weird how like the Percy Jackson show is going to continue on probably how it is. And so there's going to be more Greek mythology things out there. There's other musicals that fans have started writing of on their own since Epic started because they were inspired by the idea of him doing it. And so all those things are out there of them being very creative and writing different musicals about different things and involving Greek mythology. And so there is a lot of like really fun creative stuff that's out there. And I just like worry that this gigantic fandom in the middle of it is going to like create havoc in a way that I just don't want it to. And like
Yeah.
Percy Jackson is also a gigantic part of Greek mythology fandom, but we aren't like that.
Yeah.
And like the people in charge of our fandom want to have us go out of our way to like welcome new people. And people will make videos just telling people to never say anything mean to someone just because they haven't read the books before, or they only know it from the TV show. Those kids are adorable. Like whenever I get like a comment on one of my videos that's like, Luke dies, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. And I'm like, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. It's like adorable that I somehow spoil them when the books have been out for so long because they're kids and they have only watched the first season of the show. And so but people will make videos saying like, if you've never read any of the books, you still have a part in this fandom, and anyone who says otherwise, I will beat them up. Like people say stuff like that because that's like the environment that Rick and Becky want this fandom overall to have. And they've wanted to have that kind of idea since they started putting out the books. And so I want this other fandom to be like that, but without something like massive happening that like and I don't want something massive to happen because it would have to be something massively bad to happen to force them all to change because of something that negative happening where it forces them to realize what they've been doing. I just don't see how it will change.
Yeah.
And I want it to be more positive because it has like a really good possibility of bringing people in, because like we were kind of saying, even if you don't like what he does with the characters in Epic or the new musical he's writing now for the Troy musical or for the Iliad, it like makes you look up like if you like it enough, it'll get you to like look things up.
Yes.
And like look up other adaptations, look up the original myths and stories. Like I did that. Like when I first started reading Percy Jackson, I didn't remember a lot of the original myths. And so whenever one would come up, I would like look it up on my computer later to see what the original one was and see if it matched or whatever, because I didn't remember them anymore. And so like that's what media does. Even if you don't like it, it still usually makes people want to research it a little bit, especially if you're neurodivergent, which is like, I'm convinced 100% of people who like Greek mythology.
Like if it's a Venn diagram, it's a circle.
I will never believe that somebody who likes it is not like even Rick and Becky are.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that Jorge is somehow too.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I wanted it to be a good thing too. When we started getting into the musical, you can see me genuinely trying to like them if you ever watch our
Hmm.
YouTube playbacks of them, of me saying like, okay, he changed this, but I want to see where he goes with it.
Hmm.
And like I said that multiple times. This fandom has ruined this for me to the point where even when people are just, you know how that one song, "Tell me now who's Penelope,"
Yeah.
like every time I hear it, I have to scroll because like I get a visceral reaction of like, oh my fucking god, when am I ever gonna get away from this musical now?
Hmm.
And I don't want it to be like that. I want to enjoy things. I don't want to be a hater.
I know. I told even one of our like children that mutually messages both of us not to like message us videos with epic songs in them because we hate them so much. Because and it's like a literal like trigger to like really bad memories. And that's like part of the wild thing is if I would have posted that video and it just like would have been a normal video like I usually do, I might have like deleted it. I would have still been upset about it. We would have talked about it. We would have moved on. But because they tried so hard to tell me that we were wrong, now it's like every time I hear his music, it's like a trauma trigger where it just reminds me of how horrible that felt and I can't enjoy it. And
Hmm.
it could be like the best written music I've ever heard in my life, and I will never enjoy anything that he makes for the rest of his life because that's what his voice and his music makes me think of. Like I don't even like seeing like other cast members, and I feel bad because they all seem like genuinely nice people. And
Yeah.
I want to like support like independent artists. Like none of the other cast members really besides him have like, a substantial amount of money to be doing this kind of thing. And
Hmm.
so I would have liked to be able to support those people, but I legitimately like can't because I feel uncomfortable just like hearing their voices because it
Yeah.
just reminds me of all of this stuff. And it's like that's stupid that like
It
that his
is.
fandom made it where it's impossible for us to ever enjoy anything connected to this thing anymore. But also because it's Greek mythology, we're going to keep seeing it no matter what we do because it has such crossover with everything that we like.
Hmm.
And it just I don't know, it just makes me sad. Like there was a couple people that used to like chat with me on and off that like Epic the Musical, and when all of that stuff happened with that, they just stopped talking to me for like
Yeah.
6 months. And it was just like a sad thing to realize that like if I said no matter how many videos they watched of us and got to know us, if I said something about something that they enjoy, all of that just like went away. And I
Yeah.
know that's how parasocial relationships work, but it was just like hard to see that happening in like real time and realize that they don't actually like care about us that much.
Yeah.
Because like that's part of the weird thing of when you make content about like your own like life and like the little purpose for why you think you're still alive and things like that like we do. When people suddenly just like don't want to interact with you anymore, it's hard to not feel like it's somewhat personal because
Yeah.
it's like you used to talk to me about things that happened to you when you were growing up that you didn't like, and now you're leaving because I don't like a musical about the Odyssey. Like shouldn't one of those things be more important than the other?
Yeah.
Like I don't agree with everything that the kids who talk to us say, and they don't need to. They absolutely don't need to do. No, I disagree with them on some of the stuff that they like, and they disagree with us on some of the things that we like. But we can still talk to them. That's fine. That's usually how things work. And that's like the thing about this that's so hard is that it doesn't work that way. And I just get worried about how much bigger it's going to get.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's I only lost a couple people myself because like some of these people, I don't know why they interact with you more than me, even though you get the most hate too. It's
Well,
weird.
okay,
Yeah.
I will say this, like I'm pretty sure I understand that. To me, I think it's like my whole thing always like why you even started talking to me in the first place back in the day too, is
Hmm.
that like I know that like me just going being out there and like saying very like bluntly like things that like happened to me and just saying it as if it's like nothing. I know that like disarms people because they're like what? Like you're just talking about this super traumatic stuff, but you're just like talking about it openly. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're not like crying, you're not like falling apart, you're not like screaming even. You're just like talking about it. And
Yeah.
it's like that surprises people. And so I feel like when you're out there saying the stuff that I say about my own history, which is really, really bad, it makes it easy for anyone to like come to you with anything else because it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's not worse than what she's been through. And so no matter what I say, she can handle it.
Yeah.
And it's just that kind of a thing of when you put yourself out there like that and just say these things, it like helps, it like just makes them feel like you're somewhat more approachable, or like, or at least I, because I remember how I felt before I really told anybody anything. The thing
Mm-hmm.
that was scariest is like imagining their reaction to what you would say.
Yeah.
And so if I just say all these things all the time, and I'm obviously not like, surprised or shocked or whatever by anything, then they pretty much feel like they can say whatever to me and I won't like freak out in that way
Yeah.
that some people do who don't know how to handle it, basically.
Yeah, and I did used to, and it's been a while. So the people who know me for mythology stuff probably have been scrolled like 2, 3 years back to see that I did that. And I completely understand that. I got uncomfortable sharing my journey just because I'm at a weird place with it now.
Hmm.
But like what I was about to say was like since I didn't lose as many people, the ones that I did hurt like they hurt hella because like um with like one person for example, I saw that she had reposted something where they were talking shit about my degree, and
Yeah.
that was like it felt so devastating, and like I still don't know how to feel about it to the point where this person refollowed me after I like removed them, and I just removed them again. Like I don't know how
Hmm.
to feel about you, you can watch me from afar, I don't care. But like you know, at least you got a couple apologies, I will say, from the people that did crawl back later. Like there were a couple people who were like, genuinely, I didn't think about this. I'm so sorry.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, with me, it was just like, oh fuck.
Yeah. It like, and that stuff does hurt. And I don't know, like, I, one of the things that happens, I feel like when we talk online, of like, ironically, the reason why I posted that video about hold them down that way originally is because sometimes I feel like people think that because we talk about the stuff that we do all the time and it's things that people usually don't talk about, they think that we're like not affected by anything anymore,
Yeah.
because we're just talking about it. It's like, no, we're affected by that stuff the same way you would be, or even more so. We just are emotionally regulated most of the time, and the times that we're not posting like in real time online most of the time if we're not, or like when I posted that video I made it very clear that I was, so that people would understand what was going on and they would like react accordingly, except that they didn't. But most of the time when
Hmm.
that sort of thing happens, people don't like understand what's going on there and they don't respond to you the way that they normally would if you didn't explain that kind of thing beforehand. And like
Yeah.
when I post that stuff, I'm aware like I don't want to trigger somebody who's like me by seeing a video like this unless I feel like I have to post it because I'm just trying to like not dissociate anymore and I don't know how else to do it right now when I'm in this like weird place. Like sometimes that stuff just happens in life sometimes.
Hmm.
But I try not to do that. And so we both are like many years into going to therapy.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of different ways to like deal with stuff. And so we don't show that stuff as much publicly. Like we don't make videos crying on the internet. We don't make videos like, doing that kind of stuff. And so I feel like sometimes people think that we're not affected by that stuff, or like, oh, you're not upset by that because you're like past that. And it's like you are never past that. There's
Yeah.
like never a point where you reach that stuff where like those things don't affect you anymore at all. Like you just can handle them better when they do happen. Like the hold them down thing was hard, but after I got out of work that day, I just cried a lot and like listened to songs that I listen to when I'm sad, and then I was okay. And even when like they were harassing me really badly, that was really hard. And I definitely cried every single day for like 2 weeks about that, and like scream cried at my therapist for over an hour when I saw her for the first time in like 3 weeks after that happened. and told my mom about it later on, where my mom got all upset about it,
Yeah.
and and things like that. But like we definitely, it was definitely hard, but we also, when it was happening, I was like, I'm handling this a lot better than I thought that I would. I like, but before that happened, I didn't think I would ever be able to handle that sort of like harassment of people attacking me, especially so personally. I
Yeah.
didn't think that I would ever be able to handle it at all. And so the fact that I was able to handle it, and I was still like being able to go to work every day and like eat in some way every day, and was like, yeah, crying and upset and stuff, but I was still able to like function and live my life, when before that would have stopped, that would have like sent me on a really bad spiral, or whatever, in past years. And so I was like, oh, I'm proud of myself that I could handle this a lot better than I thought I could. But that also doesn't mean that we're just like immune to any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if you think that somebody can message me saying that I'm a horrible person over and over and over again, and that won't make me start to believe that I am a horrible person, that's definitely not true. Even if there's also a voice in my head telling me at the same time, like, why are you listening to them? That stuff, just no matter how good your coping mechanisms are, when people tell you those things over and over again, they do get to you after a while, and you just need to like take yourself out of it if you can, so that you get a break.
Hmm.
But that's part of the thing that I worry about with us, is that people think that we're like immune to that kind of thing anymore, because we don't actively show it, and it's like we're really not. We just know that it's not right to show that stuff to our audience and make them feel like they're personally responsible for any of it,
Yeah.
because you're not. It's not right to like put your emotions on anyone else. We talk to each other about it, and people that we consider like friends that we trust, and
Hmm.
that's it, because that's not any of your responsibility at all. Even like the worst people in the epic fandom, they're not responsible for how I felt in that way. I know that I'm just a stranger to them. I'm not going to put that on them. Like, I'll get mad at them for the things they say in their videos about me, and I'll
Yeah.
like make videos saying why that is incorrect. And I won't like them because of the way that they talked about things and the way that it affected me. But they're not responsible for the, like, they're not, I'm not going to go personally after them because I cried or something. That's just me, and how I'm going to deal with it. Like, yeah, have I wanted to like message that child who saw my video and made that video that started that whole thing and be like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, she also posts about Percy Jackson. I still see videos that she posts about Percy Jackson. And so I know that that's the reason why she was even seeing my videos in the first place, is because we usually talk about Percy Jackson. So she was seeing the videos I was making about Epic the Musical too. And yeah, I have wanted to do that, but she's a kid. And it's not like, no, I'm not, that's inappropriate for me
Yeah.
to go to a teenager and be like, why did you make this video attacking me? Even if it's something I'm always going to wonder. That's very inappropriate for me to do. And so there, I guess it's just a good thing to keep in mind that like if you happen to run into creators that try to like have healthy like connections with people who watch them instead of exploiting that, it doesn't mean that we don't have feelings. We just don't share it like willy-nilly with the internet, because we know that's not right to do.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. And it does, and it did hurt a lot to see people that used to talk to us just not be around the same way anymore, at all. And like the person you mentioned, I like kept trying to add her as a friend, but just finally just like took her off, and that makes me sad, because she's like one of the first people that ever watched any of the videos I ever made about Percy Jackson.
Hmm.
But I just like couldn't do it, because I'm just like, I can't, I just feel like I can't trust you, and that really sucks, because I really want to, but it was just really hard to watch all of that happen.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why I kept my DMs open until like the end of the first day, which is why I got so many of those the first day that I still have saved somewhere in case anyone ever says that I'm lying about that. Um, I kept all those on in case people like that wanted to message us and say something.
Hmm.
And like somebody did, like Sky did.
Yeah.
And like she did, but like she was the only one who did. And so I kept it on for like a day and got a bunch of horrible messages instead, in case one of the people that do talk to us about that had the, to give them the opportunity to say something if they wanted to. But after like the first day where they kept sending me those mean messages, I just turned it off and was like, never mind. If they really want to say something to us, they can find us somewhere else. Um, and that was and that was it. But like I left that on just to give them the chance to say something if they wanted to. It was on for like probably like 9 hours after it originally started.
Hmm.
And so there's no way that they didn't see any of it by that point. And so it is sad that when you realize like how parasocial this stuff can be while also feeling like also very personal at the same time. It's just like a
Hmm.
weird place to kind of coexist in with content, but it's the only way that we can do this sort of thing.
Yeah. Um, we did have one more topic for today, and I want to get to it because we're already an hour and a half in of yapping
I
about
know.
Epic, and every time we yap about Epic, we're like, we're not going to yap about Epic again. It always ends up happening.
I don't
As
even want to say it
yeah,
at this point. Like we're always gonna have it come up in some way just
yeah,
because it's there. And I feel like after everything they put us through, we are allowed to have whatever opinions we want about it.
exactly.
Too bad. If you would
Yeah,
have left us alone, we wouldn't care.
yeah.
But
I
we
mean,
feel like
like
very
the
personally like responsible almost in this weird way about what you're doing.
I mean, the secondhand trauma really is. I thought these people weren't going to stop bullying you until you like hurt yourself. Like
Yeah.
that's what I was very, very afraid of at one point.
Well,
And
and like to be
yeah,
honest, like if I hadn't done like 7 years of therapy, I probably would have, or I would have been really tempted to, where I would have had to like tell my therapist to like do something or
yeah.
something, because that sort of thing would have been too much, way too much for me at any other time in my life except for right now. But I've had enough treatment where that didn't affect me that way. But even just like a year or two ago, it would have.
Hmm.
It would have been like way too much for me. And so it's like you don't know what's going on with somebody. Um, the other thing we want to talk about was like kind of related, but not really.
I
Like
mean,
the person.
it's a little contradictory to something we said earlier. It is a little toxicity within the Percy fandom.
Well, and what I say when I talk about that is that people within the Percy Jackson fandom, like us,
Hmm.
post about this stuff and talk about this stuff to confront it as it's happening. We aren't like allowed. We're allowed to do that. Like we openly critique what how other fans discuss things sometimes. We
Hmm.
don't attack them personally as
Yeah.
people, but we still like confront it, and we're allowed to have those discussions. And this is something that we're not the only ones talking about this sort of thing that has been going on with how they're talking about Rick and Becky right now in the TV show.
Yeah.
And I just, oh God, I just like have, there are like things that are like getting so weirdly distorted about future seasons that are like 2 years away from ever airing.
Hmm.
And like one thing I thought was funny was I saw some people on Twitter complaining about, of course, like their marketing. And I
Hmm.
was like, you posted their dailies on Twitter. I hope that they give you nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately, I hope that they don't give us a trailer until 2 weeks before it
Like until
airs.
November, you
It's
know.
Thanksgiving Day, they give us a trailer. I hope they don't give us anything except for like whatever the kids happen to say. They're going to give us way more than that, but I hope, but the like petty side of me is like, I hope that they don't give us anything at all because you guys don't deserve it. Like when you act up that way, and the way that you explain it is like, well, you didn't give me what I wanted, and so we feel free to just like spread this stuff around the internet. Then it's like, why would they give you anything else?
Yeah.
If like, let's not pretend like the person was trying to act like, oh, this is just like a easy request. And I'm like, you just spread their like confidential work product across the internet.
Hmm.
You don't get to ask for anything. You should be
Yeah.
grateful you get anything at this point after miss like just being absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, to kind of like go backwards a little bit. So, there have been a couple leaks with Percy Jackson, a Nico script leak and or like a Nico audition script leak,
Hmm.
and the dailies from some of the early parts of season two. And season two's not set to air until December. All we've gotten so far is there was a teaser trailer pretty early on, and Disney Plus had a commercial that had a bunch of stuff that had a scene that looks like it's going to be from Sea of Monsters.
Hmm.
So people were saying that these leaks are happening because Disney isn't feeding us, so to speak. And then the other portion of it is that Becky has been answering fandom questions online. At least she was,
Hmm.
because this all like changed that relationship. But one of the questions was people were talking about these background characters that mean a lot to them. And she was talking about the practicality of working on TV, which is you can't have someone cameo one episode and then hold them hostage for a season that might not even get greenlit yet.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just not fair.
it's not fair.
And last week, Rick answered a question on his Goodreads blog where he said the exact same thing.
Hmm.
And that was relevant because when the whole thing happened with Becky, they were making comments like, "Oh, Rick, turn off the Wi-Fi at your house," like acting like she was the one who felt that way and he didn't. And so now they're all acting like they feel betrayed by him, which is just like, did you think that Becky was just saying stuff that he doesn't agree with? Even though she says like these are my thoughts and my opinions, not the people who live with me. She's allowed to say what she thinks, but also do you guys know that they're married and they talk every day? They're in like the
Yeah.
same meetings together. Like when Rick goes to meetings, she is also there.
I'm
Like
also married to a highly creative and, entrepreneurial man, and like I hear usually first what his ideas are. So there's no
mhm.
way she's not also getting directly from Rick his ideas, helping him develop them. She's like an unwritten co-author, and she is an executive producer.
Yeah, from the beginning. She has an Emmy with her name on it. And that we have a video of Rick opening up because he accidentally opened up hers instead of his and was like, this is the better one because it's for Becky Riordan and whatever else he said in that video about her. But like if you just Google her name, the jobs that come up is the job that she had before any of the writing stuff really took off and that she was his office manager for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And like so like she knows about everything because she just looks through her own emails because she knows that was literally her job was to know everything about everything. And so there's no way that you can act like she's like not as involved as he is or that this isn't like a team effort that they're doing together. And so it was already aggravating that they talked about it that way, but then the way that they are discussing the stuff that they're saying is just it's it's annoying because they're saying it's annoying to me because they're saying things in a way that like they're saying like, oh, this like makes sense. Like this is like a logical thing for me to be thinking. But there's like a very obvious like continuation of that thought that they're just like refusing to continue because it would like disarm the entire like discussion, argument, whatever they've been having one-sidedly with Becky Riordan all this time, at
Hmm.
least. And now that Rick is in charge of it. And so like for instance, one thing that I saw people say enough like repeated enough to want to like confront it was they were saying like I don't understand why they put like Chris Rodriguez in the first season but they're not putting the other side characters in the first season the same way. And it's like because they realized that that was a mistake. They put Chris Rodriguez like what Rick is describing in his blog where he talks about how if they put Rachel in season 3 that they might end up putting somebody in there for only that scene and then replacing them the next year. That is what they did with Chris Rodriguez. And it makes sense for them to want to put Chris Rodriguez in season 1 because him joining Luke's side is a big storyline in Sea of Monsters.
Yeah.
And if you have a TV show, you have more of a chance to expand on the idea that somebody who was at camp that was good friends with Luke joins his side. And especially considering that in the third book, even though it happens like off page, that is when he ends up being found after losing his mind inside the labyrinth. Like while they're doing all the Titans Curse stuff, is when Clarice goes to Arizona to her mom's house and finds him there, wanders around in the maze for a while to try to figure out what's going on, and then comes back out and then brings him back to camp. Like the reason why at the end of Titan's Curse, why Chiron is so distracted, where he doesn't go after Nico and doesn't ask more questions, is
Hmm.
because he's dealing with that. He's dealing with what just happened with Chris Rodriguez and Clarice and the labyrinth. We don't know that as the audience yet, but when you know that the fourth book exists, you can like realize that those things happen at the same time. And so like bringing Chris Rodriguez in like storyline wise makes sense because he introducing him in the first season makes his like betrayal better in the second season, which leads to how Luke discards him in the third season and fourth season. And
Yeah.
so bringing them trying to bring him in the first season so you know who he is, and feel more like betrayed that he's gone and is chosen Luke's side in the second season makes sense. But they also, I think, probably likely realize, like a lot of shows do after their first season, that they don't really like the idea of casting somebody and then replacing them with somebody else.
Yeah.
And like, regardless of what people like get upset about, like Chris Rodriguez has actually like an actual storyline
Hmm.
of things in the early book. Like he's the only like named kid really that joins Luke's side in the second book.
Yeah.
And so like there is a reason for him to be there in the early on books. And so acting like why are they showing Chris when they're not showing like Charlie or Selena? It's like because there's actually a reason for him to be there.
Yeah, we've read through the end of book 4 here on this podcast now, and I've said this before, I don't remember the details of the book because it's been like literally 15 years for me.
Hmm.
And so Selena has no connection to Luke yet at all where we're at. She doesn't have a connection to Luke, I'm guessing, until the next book when you find out she is the mole. And
Yeah.
then yeah, like Charlie, yeah, no connection there other than, we know that Luke is such a big person at camp that everybody kind of knows who he is and respects that and likes him,
Hmm.
before he goes evil, of course. But that's just kind of understood. Narratively, as much as I'm sure there's maybe like there's fanfics that make people feel that they're more significant in these earlier books than they are, or just trying to rewrite the earlier books based off of the information you have later. Like, you have to admit, because again, reading this with fresh eyes up until this point, up until book 4, Selena's not significant. Charlie isn't significant.
Mm-mm, not yet.
And
And that's not like saying anything against their characters because I
yeah.
love them a lot. Like scenes with them make me cry just from memory, and I haven't read the book that we're gonna. I haven't read The Last Olympian since like 2012, and since then, when I think about those scenes, I just want to cry because I like them so much, and I hate what happens to them. But like, so we're not saying that to like disregard them as characters, but like for instance, the other day, I've seen a couple times people saying like, oh, like I sent you a video of somebody saying like something about how oh they wrote out like Charlie and Selena out of season 2 and season 3, and I was like, in season 2, Selena is shown for 3 seconds when she's petting a Pegasus.
Yes.
In season 2, Charlie is talked about off page. Like
Hmm.
Percy comes back to the cabin when Tyson is there playing with his fidget toys that he got from Charlie. And so he tells Percy that Charlie took him to like the forges and gave him the fidget toys to play with. I just call them fidget toys because he's an autistic child, but that's basically what they are. And but like he tells Percy about this happening, but Percy isn't there when it's happening, and so he's told about it secondhand. It's something that happens off screen, and so it's something that could easily be told again just talking while in the show without having needing somebody to be like cast in that role. It would be a waste for somebody to be cast in a role for one scene. And so those are the scenes that, and like Charlie is in like the chariot race, but if they change the chariot race in any way, like they might on a TV show, like because Charlie was there when they were filming with like riding horses and stuff, which
Hmm.
people assumed was probably something to do with the chariot race or maybe with riding the hippocampi or something. But he was there when they were filming that stuff. So it made people
Yeah.
think that maybe they'll just have Luke directly attack them with the birds. I
Yeah.
still don't remember what they're called. It's
I
an
want to
S
say
word with
Stygian,
long
but I'm
letters.
not sure if that's
Yeah,
right.
it's like a bunch of, it's a long word, but I can never
No,
remember it.
Stygian means it's from Styx. I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
either.
remember. It doesn't matter. You know, everyone who's watching this knows what we mean. And
Yeah.
so, either way, like they might change it where they have Luke direct more directly because when you're on a TV show, for instance, and you see everything visually, having seen like these things attacking them at camp and then showing that Luke is there at camp attacking them, just like will hit home more, like what he is, like what he's doing in that book. And when you have an actor there to film that stuff, why not just have him stand there, be scary, and look menacing? And so, like, the scenes of how they work, like, Charlie being in the chariot scene doesn't have to happen that way in order for the scene to continue to happen. And so, that's not an important enough scene. He's not, like, integral to that scene in some way where, like, taking him out of it will, like, change the overall narrative of the story.
Yeah.
And so, that's Charlie and Selena in season 2. In season 3, Selena is upset because one of the one of the one of Artemis's the hunters tells her that love isn't real, which is like a I remember like ranting about that because that is completely absurd
Yeah.
for them to say that. But that she's upset about that in Capture the Flag, and Percy comments on it because he's like, even the Artemis girls are like ready to like rock their shit because they're mad at how the hunt even they're mad at the hunters, and they're
Yeah.
usually not the ones that are like aggressive in that sort of way at all. And Charlie stands next to him when they're playing Capture the Flag and watches him get electrocuted
Yeah.
by Thalia a bunch of times when he tries to win and it doesn't work.
Is
And
Charlie
that's
the head of the Hephaestus house? Because there's the
yes.
house meeting, and that's the only other place too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's in the house thing. He's there. He doesn't really he has like one line
Yeah.
and that's it. But like that scene would likely happen differently in the show anyway because those scenes always do in the show just because they don't need to have this whole they're going to likely have that version of the scene in season 3, but they don't necessarily need him like having him have like lines would take away from like the most important people in that scene are Percy and Nico and Grover and Thalia
Hmm.
and Artemis and like Zoe. Those are the people that would have like the actual speaking lines in that scene. Like he doesn't have to have lines. They can have somebody in that scene that vaguely like resembles Charlie so that when they actually do have him cast likely in like season 4 and season 5, then you know you can go back and say that that was him even if they never like had him say it at the time. But you don't I guess the thing is like that those are the only scenes they have in those 2 books, and that is hardly anything. And so the idea of saying they're cutting them out of that book, that implies that they have scenes that could be cut that would like change the story. Like Selena not petting a Pegasus and not being mad at the hunters for not liking what love is, or like Charlie not being there to stand there while they're arguing about whether Percy should go on the quest or not, or giving or like and like I said, Tyson can still tell Percy, Charlie gave me fidget toys to play with and stuff. Those things don't change the narrative of anything in any way where you would ever even notice that they weren't there unless you were specifically looking for them.
Hmm.
And like this is like a bigger like thing to talk about and I don't want to talk about it right now, but I will just say just for people who know what I'm talking about, you like people who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You guys are being weird about this because it's a ship of that you like.
Hmm.
You're being weird about this because of a ship that you like, and you don't like the fact that your ship is not going to be in the show because there's not enough scenes for them to happen. That ship is something that fans have been connected and like to like Rick Riordan said that is not what he thought would what he meant in his mind, but he's fine with fans doing whatever they want. But it is not right to attack Rick and Becky for not acknowledging your fanon ship the way that you want them to when they never said that they were going to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's a fanon or fan created ship on purpose. Those things should never be made canon most of the time. Because most of the time, if they would be, they wouldn't be as fun and interesting anymore. You can like that thing, you can, you know, figure out a way for it to work. But the reason why you don't like that Chris is in there and you don't like that Selena isn't in the scene is because of that ship. Admit that to yourself if you want to admit it to anyone else, because that is why you are that mad. You are mad that Chris is in there when Selena is not.
Hmm.
That's it. That's why you're actually mad. And like you need to like figure that out instead of harassing the creators and making it where they can't talk to you anymore. Because or at least go back and read the books.
Hmm.
Like when you're reading the books, like this I feel always weird saying things like this because I feel like it's like obvious to me, but
Yeah.
when you're reading a book, the only way that they know how to make camp and the other people at camp and like the world feel more real is by introducing these little side characters doing these little scenes because it is a book,
Hmm.
and the only way you can gain more knowledge about the world is by what Percy notices that's going on around him. When you are watching a TV show, they don't need to do that, and they can still make you feel very connected to the world. They can still make you care more about all the kids at camp.
Yeah.
They can still make you care about this world and the community that they have and all these other kids that are there without having these tiny little scenes in these books that you feel very connected to because it's a different kind of medium, and they can set up that stuff in a different way because it's a visual medium. You don't have to depend on what Percy is thinking about at any given time in order to get those ideas across. So when you read the books, the only way you felt connected to the characters was by these little side scenes that like characters like Charlie and Selena had for many books in a row, and Chris Rodriguez even for many books in a row. The TV show can still make you feel invested in these things in a different way. And it likely will if you let it actually happen
Yeah.
before you decide that it's like destroyed for life. And so seeing those comments is just really frustrating because it's like you let them actually do what they need to do.
Hmm.
You like you're saying that things are ruined because it doesn't match the book, but like it's not a book, it's a TV show. It's not going to come across the same way. We're not in like Walker doesn't have like an endless voiceover for every single scene
Oh gosh, that would get
because
so monotonous.
weird because this is a TV show. That's like the fun of it. Like in season 2, they're likely going to show scenes from Annabeth's perspective that has not like I'm pretty sure that Leah said that they're going to have scenes about things that she experienced as a kid outside of like Percy. They're going to show us things like that from her perspective. They showed us things from other people's perspective in season 1 that Percy wouldn't know about. They're going to show us like all the flashback scenes in some way. Those could all be like dreams that Annabeth is having
Hmm.
outside of like whatever dreams Percy is having at the same time. There's like they can expand on everybody's character. Like Grover has a much better character arc already in season 1, and we know he's going to have more things to do already in season 2 because
Yeah.
Ariane has said that we've seen pictures of him like fighting with like a sword. We know
Yeah,
that
like
he
him
has
up on like some sort of
mhm.
device, and
And
everybody's like, "What the heck is going on here?"
yeah, I love it. But and that he has scenes with Clarice when Clarice shows up on Polyphemus's island after the ship explodes, and
Hmm.
which is not it's they have scenes in the book but we don't get to see them, but now in the TV show we're going to get to see them. There's going to be scenes of Luke with his dastardly people with Chris Rodriguez and the new character Allison,
Hmm.
who we still don't know what she's doing. And so those are all things that were not in the book that are going to be in the show that are going to enrich the experience. And if you let them actually do it and then watch it and then see how you feel about it instead of deciding right now that it's not going to be worth your time, you likely will enjoy it. And instead of like spending all of your time being so sure that it's not going to be good, let yourself be excited about something
Hmm.
and wait and see what it is first before we haven't even seen like a full trailer
Oh my
for
gosh.
season 2 when people are sure that season 3 isn't going to be good. And it's like,
Yeah,
what do you mean?
it's so
And
weird.
like, and I always want to talk about that because kind of what we were saying before about how we make content about like super personal things. Like it really sucks that Becky Riordan isn't on the internet the way that she was anymore. Not only because not only because she was a really good source for like just anything if you wanted to ask her about anything, and like she still does answer some question, like if somebody asks her something and you're not being horrible to her, she'll still answer it if she feels like it. and
Yeah.
things like that. She has been like the last couple days, like little things. You can still do that. But she is way less like, around than she used to be. And I don't like that a lot because she's somebody that is like us.
Yes.
that has a similar like sense of humor as both of us, and also is just like somebody that's been through shit and likes to like engage with the internet and like laugh about stuff and like cares about the same stuff that we do. Like she watches what's going on with like people attacking trans kids and media that's supposed to have trans people in it in general, or they're just queer people in general. She posts things about, like today, she was posting about a nonprofit in Boston that her and Rick give extra books to because she posted like special edition books that no one can ever find.
Hmm.
And so it's like when Neil Gaiman was like outed for being a fucking predator, she was posting like things about a rape crisis center in Boston and telling people to go give rape crisis centers money if they have money. And it's just somebody that has like the same general ideas in mind. Like the other day, she was posting job things. She was like, "Oh, hey, this theater that's putting on the Percy Jackson musical has a job opening for a production assistant if anyone wants to have a job, get a job here." Like she does it every once in a while. She'll just be like, "Hey, one of you could work here." And it's just that's just like a positive force to have on the internet. And when you are somebody that's been through a lot of trauma stuff, and then you find somebody like that that's online that understands what you're saying without even trying. Like she just gets what we're trying to say because she literally told us that.
Yeah.
And so I know for a fact, this is a fact, that she understands what we're trying to say. And that's just like a reassuring thing, especially right now with like the chaos of the world. It was just reassuring to have somebody like that around that a lot of people listen to, that are trying to keep people focused on the things that really matter instead of things like devolving out of control. And it really sucks to lose somebody like that, because it became a point of like her being online was causing more problems
Yeah.
than it was really bettering, because no matter how much good was happening with other people, people like were coming over from Twitter making accounts just to say mean things to her.
Yes.
Like some of those people were also saying mean things to me, and I would click on their account and it would be 0 followers, following, no people, 0 followers. And I was like, you made this account just to leave her a mean comment, and you're saying anything to me about
Yeah.
what you think I'm saying? You literally made a comment here just to harass somebody and then left. That's the only post they've ever made is whatever they said to her on that day. And it's like that's not a good environment for anybody. And that's like why we're critical of Jorge, because in that situation she took herself off
Yeah.
of
She took
everything
herself out of the equation.
because it was the right thing to do. She could see how things were getting worse, and she was like, okay, I need to step back because this is a bad situation. I don't want to make things worse. And also, like, I need the fandom to like admit that when you are willing to post dailies like that on the internet, the communications with the people involved are always going to feel different now, because they know that you're willing to do things like that to get back at them. And it means that they have to be even more careful than normal about what they say to you and how they talk to you, because you're like that's threatening. You're threatening them. You're threatening them to do what, like when you use that to like try to threaten people to do what they want, you can't take that back suddenly and expect them to continue to talk to you and give you information when you don't feel like doing that anymore, because it's always in the back of their mind that you have the potential to do that again.
Yeah.
And so it's like she took herself out of that because it was the right thing to do. Her and Rick both haven't been posting as much the last couple weeks
Yeah.
because it was the right thing to do. And so when I see other creators like Jorge or even like Suzanne Collins and stuff not saying things when things are going a little bit wonky with their fans, like that's a choice that they're making because these
Yeah.
people are making different choices. And yeah, I'm frustrated that she like felt the need to do that, like she had to do that in order
Yes.
for that to happen. Like I don't, and even it's like a weird thing where like I understand how those kids feel. They feel very like personally connected to this book series. everything in their lives right now is chaotic and out of control like it is in everyone's lives, but they're teenagers, and so they don't have control over anything that they do except for enjoying the show. And so this is something that they feel they have control over. But at a certain point, you have to realize when you're doing things that are hurting people, especially when you can literally see it happening in front of you.
Hmm.
And especially if you feel like you know a famous-ish person enough to like judge their character negatively. Like you have no idea who Becky Riordan is.
Yeah.
Like you have no idea. Like if you do you like Annabeth? I'm
Who do you
pretty
think
sure that
she's
you
based off of? Yeah.
most of the people being the worst to her are people who have like avatars of Annabeth. If
Hmm.
you like Annabeth, you like her. And so it's like, why are you turning her into the villain here? You don't know who she is.
Yeah.
And the things that you do know about her, you seem to like her when it's not her that's doing the things that she would do. Like you
Yes.
like when Annabeth is like straight and blunt and to the point and tells people exactly what they need to hear, even if she doesn't say it nicely. You like it when Annabeth is doing that, but when Becky is the one telling you, like, hey, these characters might not be in this season. I don't want you guys to get your hopes up when it's not going to happen. I'm sorry that it's not going to work that way, but this is just how the TV industry works. Suddenly, when she's telling you the truth as herself, it makes you really angry. But when it's her character doing it that is based on her and her life, then you like it. But when it's actually her in the flesh, like an actual person, then you attack her for doing the exact same things that you like her character for. So
Hmm.
like do you know how confusing? Like I'm confused by that. I hope she's not confused by that, but I'm so confused by that.
Yeah.
That people like Annabeth for the same reason that they say they don't like Becky. And I'm like, so do you only like characters who do that aren't real people? Like
Apparently.
that's so weird. And but it's just frustrating because this person actually does care about you guys a lot. That's why she's not on anymore because she does. She wants you all to be okay. Like part of that whole discussion that I had with her on the day when all that blew up was like we were both being very empathetic towards all of those people, but because in the same way like with the Epic fandom, because they were already looking at anything she said suspiciously, they didn't even understand that. I don't think that they even do now. They don't understand that when we were talking about like find a better coping mechanism, we were saying like we understand that you're using the ownership you feel over the Percy Jackson books as a way to cope with the chaos and horror and trauma that is going on in your life right now by just
Yeah.
existing in the United States right now. But we ask you that if the only way you know how to handle it is by getting back at this production by posting dailies all over the internet that are going to like make people's jobs be in jeopardy and make like the child actors on set not feel safe, then
Hmm.
we ask you to like find another way to feel safe because that's harming actual people that you actually probably care about. And
Yeah.
if you would stop and like think for a second, you would realize that and you would probably pull back from what you're doing. That's what that discussion we were having was saying, but nobody actually stopped long enough to figure that out. And I hope that they do at some point, but that's like what we were saying. And to see people be like, did you just say we had to go to therapy? And it's like, that's all you got out of that conversation
Apparently,
is
yeah.
us mentioning therapy. The only thing you should get out of that conversation when we mention therapy is that is two people that has been in therapy for a long time. Like
Yes.
that's how you talk about therapy when you've done it for many years and you know how to and you can just discuss it like that with people without any problems. That's the only thing about therapy in that conversation you really need to know is that that was two people that have done it for a while in their life and can sit there and comment and talk about the things that we've learned in it. We
Yeah.
weren't there was nothing judgmental about that in any way, and it's just really frustrating because I know that if she was able to be around more still that she would probably be talking about things that are important that would help people just feel like that we're not alone with like being so afraid of everything that's going on right now.
Yeah.
She would be talking about all that stuff that's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, the most that they've done, like recently, was post that they were at No Kings slash Pride rallies, and
Hmm.
At least they're still doing that for us of standing on their morals, standing on, like what they've built their careers off of, which is acceptance and love for, diverse people. So,
Hmm.
I am really proud of them for that. I have to wonder if Becky's just gonna let it die down and eventually she'll be back a little bit more. Hopefully that's the case because it's hard to watch people be mad at an author who's genuinely doing well when we literally have J.K. Rowling saying shit like you should take pictures of trans people in bathrooms because we should be exposing the type of people that do that. Or like we have her saying that gender affirming care, like cosmetic gender affirming care is unnecessary and it shouldn't be allowed when like lady you've definitely had work done. Like yeah.
Yeah, and like I cut this out of our last episode because I knew I was going to say it again, but
Mhm.
it is just like a wild thing that this like book series has had gay characters in it since 2014.
Mhm.
There's been a trans character in it that is one of the main characters in the book series since 2015. Before gay marriage was even legal, those two things happened, and they were children that were doing it. Like, there's hardly any like canonically queer characters in books a lot of times that are like huge book series like this,
Yeah.
even now. And so those things happened back then. Like there's so many queer people in the Trials of Apollo books. I like lost count with how many there are. Reyna is seen as asexual in 2014.
Yeah.
Like in the Blood of Olympus, she literally said like she has like a prophecy in that book series about how she's never gonna find like love and acceptance through like romantic relationships. And then in the Blood of Olympus, a character tries to like hit on her or something, and she literally laughs in his face and is like, "No, bye now." Like that's not what I want ever from anyone. And but like the idea that Rick Riordan put a asexual an ace a romantic like asexual, not just aromantic and asexual, which is usually how they are, somebody who still has romantic attraction but is asexual in his book in 2014. There is no representation for asexual people, and if there is any, it's only aromantic asexual people,
Mhm.
not anything else. And I was just like, what? Like, you put that in your book series in 2014? And there's all these different, like, diverse characters and things. He started his imprint literally to let other diverse authors get way more attention by being connected to his name. Like they're putting out a bunch of the other books that are on his imprint are also on sale this week, for it being the 20-year anniversary on Saturday. It's not just his books; it's any of the books on his imprint that are also on sale for anyone to buy, and they're promoting those books the same way they're promoting Percy Jackson
Yeah.
on the Reed Riordan's blog. And so it's like they're doing all these things, and it was the number one show at Disney Plus when season one came out. It won 8 Emmys after being nominated for 16 of them, which is
That's
absolutely
crazy.
ridiculous. To They were nominated for every single category they could be physically possible to be nominated for, basically, and won half of them. That is unheard of for season one, like only for the first season of the show. And so the fact that there are people that are unhappy with the show, I just feel like I'm in an alternate universe. Like usually like the joke that people say about like streaming services, like, oh, that was a good season but it's going to be another like 2 years before we see another
Mhm.
season. That doesn't apply. Like, some people have made that joke on videos I've made, and I'm like, that doesn't apply for this show. Like,
Yeah.
season two was filming last summer and they're filming season three this summer. Like, we're on a regular schedule at this point where they're, if they don't stop the way that they're doing it, they're going to have a new season come out every year. And like Stranger Things is still somehow gonna, like, the fact that the end of
Oh my
Stranger
gosh,
Things
yeah, I
is
forgot.
supposed to come out in December, like when Percy Jackson season two is going to come out at the same time as the very end, finally, of Stranger Things.
That's
When
crazy.
Stranger Things started, when some of these kids were like 4,
Yeah.
like the first season
Millie
of
Bobby
Strangers.
Brown's married.
Yeah, like the first season of Stranger Things, I looked this up because I wanted to know. The first season of Stranger Things was in 2016.
Yeah.
Walker and Leah were 7. They were 7. They hadn't even read Percy Jackson yet.
Oh my
They were
gosh.
7 when Stranger Things started, and they're gonna be ending Stranger Things when they're gonna be on season 2, and they're gonna be already halfway done with filming season 3, and Stranger Things only has 5 seasons. And it's still somehow ending now. Like, that's how other shows have been. This one is not. It's very like on top of it. Rick has a new book coming out every single year. Like, he has a new book coming out this year that's about Will and Nico.
Mm.
And like expanding more in his world. Like, Hazel's going to be in that book, which he hasn't been in a book in a while. And it's like there's new content coming out all the time in like multiple different arenas. Like, the fact that there's 2 seasons of the TV show and there's a new book. There's like 3 other projects that Rick said he's working on that he's not allowed to tell us about yet. And he's also writing another book like that he
Yeah.
did tell us about. It's like there's so many things happening at once. He's going to Italy in October. He posted a video of him speaking Italian, telling us that he was going to Italy at the end of October, to go to a convention there. And so it's like they're constantly doing everything they possibly can. And it just feels like it's like if you're not happy with all of the stuff that they're putting into this, I feel like you're not going to be happy with anything. And it just feels wild to be like, none of this stuff matters because Selena isn't in season 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need you guys to like go back, reread the books, and like actually take in what happens in them. Like, I'm not saying that to be mean, but generally, like, when you haven't read the books in a while and all you read is fan fiction, I've had this happen with other things. You forget what is fan fiction and what is actually in the books. I need you guys to go back and read what is actually in the books before you start disparaging people online for their opinions.
Yes.
I just need you to do that because most of the things that you're saying wouldn't apply if you actually read the books again and understood. Like, I very much understand why fan fiction writers would expand on Charlie and Selena's stories by going back in time kind of stories with fan fiction. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It would be fun to read stories like that. But just because their stories in the end are extremely important and emotionally impactful for like everyone on planet Earth who will ever like engage with those stories does not mean that people are putting importance on scenes that they have earlier on in the other books because they are important later on. But this is something that fandom has done, and I blame BBC Sherlock for it, where they feel like everything has to be like connected or something. That's not true. Like, everything doesn't actually have a meaning or a purpose. Everything doesn't have to have something. And so like the scenes that Selena and Charlie have in the second and third book, they don't need to be there. If those things are missing, it doesn't take away from the scenes they have at the end.
Yeah.
And so people, because they love the scenes at the end so much, they feel like those characters are so important that they have to be in these previous seasons because they love them so much at the end that they want to see. I understand that idea of wanting to see more of them, but I would rather see them in scenes where they're like they have the impact that you want them to have instead of them just like existing in scenes where they're not, when they're kind of being wasted.
Yeah.
And so like I understand why you might feel like you need to see more of them because their scenes at the end are so important and you want those scenes to happen and have the emotional impact that they had. There's like, there is no conceivable way on planet Earth that those scenes will not have the emotional impact they had in the books. Like, there is those scenes, like, you don't know what I'm talking about, but those
I
scenes
don't,
are
but I'm trusting you.
are so sad. Like, I was like, when I posted that video where I was talking about like, oh, there are bombs in the last Olympian, I almost started crying while I was writing out the post thinking about that scene. And like, yeah, those scenes happen the way that they do in the books. They're going to happen the way that they do in the books in the show, and people are going to cry. Even people who don't know those characters before, you don't need to have that sort of like emotional attachment to a character in a TV show in order to care about them like that. They will put enough of them in there for people to care before those scenes happen, and those scenes will always rip them apart. Like, they rip you apart every single time. There is no way that they could possibly ever mess that up where you won't feel the impact, because regardless of what people think, they don't have that much time in the books really before that happens. And so likely the TV show will probably have more of them in it
Yeah.
before those scenes happen, even if they don't show up until season 4. Like, I know I said this before, but I personally think that season 4 is the perfect time for them to add people like that, because the entire like plot of season 4, in the same way that season 2 is like a race against the clock to try to get back to save camp, season 4 is the same thing, of them trying to race against the clock to stop Luke from getting back to camp and killing everybody. And so them showing people like camp getting ready and trying to prepare for that kind of thing before they get there, and introducing like Luke messing with Selena the way that he is, and Charlie being somebody that people like a lot at camp and go to for help, they could very easily introduce that in season 4 without even that much screen time, and it would still be it would make you feel invested in those characters on top of all the other characters we already care about. And so it would be very easy for them to introduce that in season 4 at some point. It wouldn't even take that much screen time, and you would have all that you need for them before going into the final season.
Yeah.
And so it's like that is the season where it makes sense to introduce other kids at camp and stuff, when it's about to get blown up by Luke and Kronos and stuff, and it then does at the end of the book. And so that's the scene to add more characters in. You just have to wait till we get there. But like, just because it doesn't happen before that, I don't want them to add in all these characters that we care about just because we care about them.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to be there because it actually works for like the storyline.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get like the beginning of Harry Potter where there's like the ghost running around for no reason.
Yeah.
And like just all these random characters that are in the books, but there's no actual purpose for it to actually be in the movies. It's just there. It's literally just there because it's in the books. Mm-hmm. And it just, and like people who, I remember at the time when those movies were first coming out, I was trying to explain to the friends I had that never read the books what the fuck was going on with those characters and stuff, because they were like, who is that? What is going on? Why is there this scene? Why is there this weird storyline of Hagrid with like his giant dog and an egg? Like what is happening? Why is he so weird? Why is Draco's hair like that? Like what, like who, like they ask so many questions like that because they never explain any of them on screen, because they just assume that you read the books already and knew what they meant. But like the whole point of adaptations is that they have to stand on their own. You don't have to read the books in order to understand them. There are people who watch the first season of Percy Jackson that know all the points to hit and understand what's going on with all the characters that never read any of the books.
Yes.
And they can keep up with us. They don't know like any of the spoilers or whatever, and sometimes accidentally get spoiled by us talking about it, but they understand what's going on with all the characters anyway, because all that came across well in the show. Yes. Like, this isn't going to be like that. I'm glad, because the best Harry Potter movies were the ones that diverted from this story. Like, at Prisoner of Azkaban is always the best Harry Potter movie by far, because it like actually made the world feel like it had some sort of personality, because it like gave them something different. Like, they wore normal clothes. The tree is hilarious in that movie, how they show the different like seasons by how it changes and stuff, and it also just fits perfectly into the narrative of the story, because they have to go through the tree at the end to get to like Hogsmeade and stuff. And it's just, there's like the whole thing with like the time turner sequence, like everything that is done in that movie that is slightly different from the book is done really well. And it stands out as like different, because you can tell that the director actually took the time to like have the same storylines but make it feel like its own thing, instead of just copying the books. Yeah. And so like people didn't like that movie at the time for like stupid pedantic reasons, like, oh, they're wearing normal clothes. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. This is a movie like based in our world. What the hell do you want us to do? Like, even like J.K. Rowling doesn't make sense with how she describes the clothes. Like, they have to wear normal clothes. What, did they walk around naked before they found out they were Wizards like she like says that they're surprised by muggle clothes, but then never explains what they wore besides like
Yeah, that's
robes.
true.
But they can't wear robes all the time, so what the fuck do they wear outside of robes? Like they never
I didn't
tell
think
she
about
never
that.
tells
Well,
you.
ropes and sweaters because we know Mrs. Weasley knits sweaters, but that's
No
yeah.
pants. Like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, but yeah, like I just like what I don't know if this is like a boomer take, but there are bigger fish to fry than
truly.
worrying about the pedanticness of this media, of how season two is going to happen, of how season three is going to happen, because there's still libraries shutting down for having books about LGBT characters. Like, we don't know if this production's even going to make it because Disney was getting investigated for its DEI practices. Like, right now,
And I
things
will
are pretty serious.
one of the things that I was like laughing at the other day when everything with Iran was just
Yeah.
batshit. It's still batshit, but less batshit right now at least. Who knows about tomorrow? But at least right now it's less crazy. But when that initially first broke, I just like posted this thing that it was something that Becky once said to me where it was when I was like frustrated about people posting the casting call because they were posting it without understanding how things work in the industry.
Hmm.
And so and like I didn't want to be scrolling on Twitter seeing all these things. I don't want to read things like that are like spoiler to that point.
Yeah.
And I was just saying that it was like frustrating me that was happening. And she basically her response literally was, "Well, considering the state of the world right now, like we're not it's I don't she said it doesn't feel very triggering to me right now because the state of the world is in such a bad place that we might not have just like normal freedoms right now. So I'm not really worried that much about like creative freedom." And she posts like a broken heart emoji. And like I wrote in response to her like that's why this stuff gets to me because it feels like what's happening in like the bad stuff is like coming into this place that's supposed to be like a safe place and like disrupting it because I know that the reason why people are responding to things like this is because the other stuff that's going on. And I basically said like and I also it just reminds me that like the kids are probably going to be under more pressure by having to answer questions about this stuff without having to like give anything away. And it just reminds me of how people are under a lot more pressure of people being watched all the time. And I just don't like being reminded of that in a place where you're not supposed to. And she's like, that's a really good point. That she basically said, like, that's a really good point that, stuff that happens with Percy is reflected in what's going on with the rest of the world. And I was like, yeah, but like Becky's literally telling me we can't be that upset about things because we might not have actual freedom soon. So I don't feel that upset about things like this when I usually would be because it's like, I might not have real freedom soon. Like
Yeah.
what are they supposed to do? Like everyone they care about is in danger right now. Even
Yeah.
just their own kids. Like one of their kids works at like the disability accommodations office at their college. Their job is literally DEI, like helping people with disabilities get accommodations for their classes. And the
Yes.
other kid is a librarian. Like hello. That's their entire family, a librarian that has a special interest in learning about fascism.
Hmm.
And so it's like that's their entire family is in this difficult place, much less literally everyone else in the world that they care about too. And so that's hard. And so it's just ridiculous that it's at this place. And that's why I'm like literally like almost like feeling like I'm begging people to like figure out another coping mechanism, but to yell at people on the internet that you don't personally know, but you feel personally affected by as a way to like cope with this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like this stuff is supposed to be a safe place that we can still talk about queer identity and like gender stuff and just abuse and trauma and things like that and still talk about it in a way that nobody's like questioning whether any of that stuff is real or if any of that stuff matters. Like this is a like part of the reason why I love this book series so much is that this is one of the rare things that always takes that seriously.
Yeah.
Like, and it just takes it more seriously as more time has gone on. Like us reading other books just like proves that like Epic the musical didn't take certain things seriously. Even Madeline Miller um, doesn't take certain things as seriously as I thought she would in Song of Achilles anyway. Who knows about Cersei yet? But at least for Song of Achilles, she didn't. And so like this is something that like does hit the things that I want it to hit, which is not usually how that works. And so it's like
Yeah.
this is a place where we're supposed to be able to talk about this stuff and not have people randomly start attacking you out of nowhere about things like this that just feel like just like what am I doing? Like what's going on? Are people are like posting the conversations I'm having with Becky Riordan across Twitter
Yeah, that
and
was weird.
calling and like just what and then like yelling at me in my threads like notifications and stuff about how I'm a narc.
Okay, whatever.
Because like the idea that if I didn't talk about the fact that they stole dailies and posted them all over the place that Becky would never find out about it.
My God.
Like what do you think is going on Twitter? Do you think you're in a magical like zone that nobody else can like get to?
Yeah, Becky used to be on Twitter a lot, you guys. You forgot.
Yeah, like even though she's not on there anymore because it's Twitter and it's absolutely horrendous at this point. Like I don't think anyone should really be on there who like values their mental health and wellness anymore. But like just because she's not on there doesn't mean that you're in like an impenetrable minefield and we can't like access what you're saying. Like we
Yeah.
can look at things that you're saying without even having to log into Twitter anymore. I do that sometimes just to try to see what wild stuff is going on there after all this stuff happened. But it's just like it shouldn't. Ugh. I really want you guys to figure out another way to handle this stuff instead of attacking people about protecting this thing.
Yeah.
Literally anything. Like, because most of the comments of them saying it on the day, they just said that they were bored. They were mad because they don't have a new trailer to talk about and they ran out of things to talk about. And I was like, go in Discord. Like, start like an role playing like group like the kids like to do where they all play a different character.
Yeah.
Write fan fiction together. People like doing that too. On Discord, start a fucking YouTube channel. Like we did that.
Yeah.
Just start a YouTube channel, start an Instagram account, learn how to Photoshop, learn how to make videos, learn how to do something, anything. I don't care what you do. Just do something besides yell at people that you're annoyed with when you're bored.
Yeah.
Like, please.
Yeah. Okay, so to move us on again, because we've been on for like 2.5 hours now. Um, do we have anything positive? I think like the Percy series did put out something new, which was Annabeth talking over, or not Annabeth, Leah talking
Hmm.
over her favorite scene to film so far.
Yeah, they
Um,
did. They did Arian on Monday and then
oh,
Leah
I didn't see
today.
it yet. I saw the Leah one. I haven't actually been actively checking the account. But like, yeah, the Leah one I saw and her saying how filming the Lotus Hotel scene was so cool.
Hmm.
And seeing the production put that many extras in and have the set that way,
Hmm.
it changed what she thought it would look like from the books too, and that was
Hmm.
kind of cool to hear.
Hmm. Yeah, and the one that Arian did on Monday, he said his favorite scene filming was Capture the Flag.
Hmm.
And his is talking about like how excited they were to film that scene,
Hmm.
and it's adorable listening to how excited he was about it. And so besides that, they've like posted stuff about like new editions of books and stuff coming out. If you're somebody who likes to collect them,
Hmm.
go check that out on Becky's Threads account. She always posts when those things are coming out. But other than that, that's like it for right now, but who knows what will happen in the next couple weeks or so.
Yeah.
Um, but that's what's going on with that stuff, at least for now. I'm trying to think of anything else, but
Yeah,
nothing yet.
there's not too much huge. Daniel just had a birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Was there another birthday?
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, because they're both Geminis. So,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting. Okay, we'll go with it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So,
It's very funny that the kid who plays Luke has like 4 Gemini placements. I
oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
you are Luke.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I get why you're good at this. Like you're
Yeah.
just that kind of edgy, like whatever actor, I guess. Um, but yeah, other than that, That's what's going on with that. I can't think of anything else. There's probably other things I'm not remembering right now, but that's the stuff that's most important for right now.
Yeah. And when did you say the anniversary is again?
Saturday?
Saturday. So we'll probably have some news next week then,
Hmm.
hopefully. And yeah, now that summer break's happening, that's one thing, like another big creator that does Percy content, Mason had said, like, hello, this is a children's series. Of course, they're not going to be putting out new shit until like this summer when kids are out of school. And I'm going with his logic there because I do think that that makes sense.
Yeah.
So now that we're fully into summer, most kids are done with school, or all kids are probably done with school unless you go to a year-round type of situation, then like
Hmm.
it's probably gonna start dropping.
Yep.
New stuff
It
will
will.
start dropping. So,
Yeah, and the one thing I wish fandom would just admit is like when we complain about marketing, we just want to see it.
yeah.
Like I'm fine with admitting that. Like, yeah, I just want to see that stuff, but they're not
Yeah.
doing a bad job like it doesn't come out for 6 months. Like anything that they post in June and July and August, even if we love to see it, it's not going to make or break how many people watch this in December. Most people will see the trailers and commercials and whatever in like the couple weeks going into when it premieres at the end of December. Like they'll pay attention to what happens in December. And
Hmm.
that's the only time they need to is what's going on in December to remember when it premieres so they remember to watch it.
Yeah.
But other than that, we're the only people who care about that stuff and
Yeah.
we're going to watch it regardless. And so like
Yeah. Well, and okay, so for next Wednesday, Monday we do our Cersei episode. For next Wednesday, if they drop something, of course, we're gonna talk about it. But I would love for us to compile all of our like theories on what they're gonna do with season two,
mhm,
because we've been saying we were gonna do it, and like we should just have one podcast where we put all of them in one place and
yeah.
talk about them again.
Yeah, we can do that cuz we read Sea of Monsters last like May and like June. It was a lot. It was basically a year
Yeah.
ago. Like I remember like this time last year was when I realized that Becky's account was Becky. I didn't even know that that was her for the longest time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we can I'll probably like go back and try to watch some of the episodes we made back then just to try to remember everything we said.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
and
that would
some
be
of it's
fun
already
because
been
there's
confirmed or denied too. So,
yeah, because there's a lot of there's a lot of fun stuff we've mentioned here or there, but we've never put it all into just one episode.
yeah, so that's what we'll plan. For Monday, the Cersei chapters we're reading are 10, 11, 12, and yeah, we're expecting that those might be very trigger
Oh
heavy
yeah,
chapters
if
because of the Minotaur birth.
I was gonna say if you have any like difficult triggers about like pregnancy,
Hmm.
and complications in pregnancy, definitely like think about don't watch it like live. And when I post the videos we do online, I always put trigger warnings up. Like I make like the whole screen trigger warning this for a couple seconds before it keeps going, and I usually keep the trigger warning words on the screen the whole time until we stop talking about it. Or if it goes on for a while, I'll just put in like the description, like when it ends. And
Yeah,
so if that stuff is hard, like maybe wait until I put it up later so that, and like look to see if you want to listen, because it's probably, considering some of the trigger warnings we've seen on the websites that talk about Cersei trigger warnings, there's a lot of things about like graphic labor situations. And
yeah,
considering that it ends with her going to see her sister when we know from mythology that she's pregnant with the Minotaur, that's probably going to be pretty awful.
yeah. So,
And so like
yeah,
we'll talk about it in a way that isn't like, disgusting, but just like if you have any bad triggers with pregnancy at all, because I know that's something that's really hard for a lot of people. If you've ever had like, I know a lot of people have somewhat traumatic births, like labor situations. If that's you,
yeah,
don't listen to that until, and if you really are wondering, you can just leave a comment and ask us and we'll tell you like how bad it is, because even if I've never been pregnant, that stuff scares me still. My sister has been pregnant, and so it's scary for me to think about her getting pregnant again and that kind of thing happening to her. I don't like hearing that stuff either. And I have like just as a general aside, when you go through like sexual abuse, especially as a kid, you have a really weird relationship with being pregnant because that's like your biggest fear ever when
Yeah.
that's going on. And so pregnancy stuff honestly freaks me out a lot of the time. And so I'm not going to like that reading that stuff that much either. And so I'll be honest with you, if you ask how bad it is, I'll tell you if it's really bad, if you need to know how bad it is. And I
Yeah.
understand why you would, because it is hard. And I am making like a chapter by chapter like trigger warning guide for the book instead of it just being like more open. And so if you want to see that, I'll try to make it before we do our episode on Monday and just post what I have done so far just so
Yeah.
people have an idea, cuz I really hate how it's just like an open trigger warning for the entire book. And I'm like, I need more. Where? Like when? How often? These are the questions that I need to know
Yeah.
if I want to figure out how to actually read this book. And so at least after we're done with it, nobody else will have to figure that out because I'll make it and you'll
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So that's all we have for today. We'll be back on Monday with the Cersei chapters. I really have to be because we've been sitting here for 2 hours or two hours and 45 minutes now. So yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.